Shirt show. All right, let's go.
Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt, man!
All right, episode 57 of Shirt Show. We're talking with Michael from ML Screen Printing in Pennsylvania. Let's go!
What up, Boo?
Hey, boo, boo, boo.
Can you hear me? I like you. I like your smile.
This meeting is being recorded.
Why are you doing that?
What do you see? This is come on.
I can see this recording.
Get your head in the game, Dylan. When you first came on, you know how you were talking softly? You know how you were doing that?
Yeah. Hey.
Well,
Hey.
Eric, you know Eric from Night Owls?
Yeah, I saw his post and I told him I loved it so much.
He messaged me and he said he loved how when I speak softly. Yeah, he said he really likes my soft voice, and so I thought we would just you know how like
We'll just Billie Eilish the whole thing.
Let's do it. So let's hear that again.
Hey there, baby.
Hey, how's your day going?
It's going real good.
Yeah.
How you doing there, baby girl?
Yeah, that is like super romantic.
Right. Lighting candles and stuff.
Maybe a bubble bath.
Yeah, I could sit in a bubble bath right now.
Okay. What's going on? Like, why are you late? I don't get it. What's
well, it's middle of a fucking work day.
It is.
And I'm training a new guy, training a new front desk girl, which Sarah's doing. So thankfully I don't have to do that. And I just got out of a meeting. That's why I didn't hop on here a little earlier. It's because I was in a meeting with a solar company I've been going back and forth with.
Solar,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm gonna invest into a solar farm, and guess how many solar panels it would take right now to run what I've got setup wise.
420.
You went higher than everyone. 253 panels.
That's
Each farm they build is 1,000 panels, so I would own a quarter of that farm.
Where's the farm go? Like
they're like all
Missouri?
over New York State. Like it's not near here. Okay. It's like the one that he was saying that they would build is probably like I don't know, like a half hour from here. But it doesn't really matter. It just goes into the NICEAG grid and then it like comes off my bill. But they're my panels. Like I own the panels.
So I'm gonna build you a solar farm somewhere.
Right.
And it's going to cost you, and it's 253 panels.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't that bad.
Then what?
Then I pay for the panels or whatever. Like if I got a loan and it took me.
I don't like it. I don't like the way this sounds. Just buy your own panels and put them on your building.
No, I can't fit 253 panels on my building. First of all. Second of all, there's downsides to putting them on in my building because then they're just going to screw shit into my roof and I have to maintain them. Like if they get dirty or damaged, I have to maintain them. If you buy them on a farm, you pay them like $1,000 a year to maintain them. Like they're going to clean them. They're going to take care. They're going to mow around them, do everything they got to do. And so basically I don't need to say a dollar amount. Let me just say this. It's basically buying another gauntlet for these solar panels.
No.
But then after I pay off the panels, my bill's at zero.
Do you remember when we talked to John at Logo Daddy?
Yeah, he did it.
No, he didn't do a solar farm.
Yeah, but he did panels on his building.
I would just say this. I'll give you John's number.
I got it already. We text each other all the time.
You do not. You do fucking not. Don't even go there. You don't have his number.
Yes,
okay, what's his number? What is it? What is his number?
It's fucking 862 hot dog.
All right. Well, I'll get you connected to him.
I'm already connected.
He's my friend. And you can give him a call because he went through this whole process. He might have even explored the solar farm thing. And I don't know. That sounds a little like I have a star.
Why does it sound weird?
Because I have a star I can sell you and we'll name it after Upstate Merch and then it's your star.
That's
Okay,
not
it's
even
about
close to the same.
hold on, and it's only maybe 100K. That's all.
Right.
And
But
you'll
I'm not getting anything from that star. This star
sure you
on
are.
this
Oh no,
farm is.
no, you own that star. Like you can move there if you want.
It doesn't make any sense.
Sure it does.
I'm just trying to save the planet, right?
That is nice. And so am I. And here's my story. Ready? Here's my Save the Planet story. And this is a little emotional.
Are you killing birds out front of your building?
You and I are seriously connected because this is exactly what my story is about. You know how I am at war right now. And this war is ongoing. It is a serious war.
Right. War of the Worlds.
And you know how I hate these birds. Well, I'm walking in this morning and there's a bird trapped. Like in this, they put up some stuff to keep them out and it's trapped in there. And
you laughed at it and walked in?
I wanted to be like, huh, like, I don't care.
You gave the bird. You were like,
let me tell my story.
all right, sorry. I want to
walking in. I'm walking in, it's trapped there. It's sort of sad, but what tugged at my heart was when another bird flew up and started to feed it. I don't know if it was food or water, but it was giving it something to survive, or maybe they were just kissing. And I thought, you know what? If Dylan was trapped somewhere, I would do the same thing. Like I would fly or I'd walk up to you.
Spit, you chew food and throw it up in my mouth.
I'd throw it up in your mouth. Or
don't kink shame this bird.
Or if you were thirsty,
that's what they're doing.
If you were thirsty or something like that, I would just put water in my mouth and then go up there and spit it into yours. I'd do that for you. I just wanted you to know that.
Would just baby bird it to me?
Don't do that. Stop doing that. But I saw that and I was like, this is too much. This is too much. I went and got a ladder. I climbed up to that roof and unscrewed this corner.
Yeah.
And to like give it space to get out. Nothing. Like it actually got like within a foot, then it got within 9 inches, and it got within like 6 inches of like living, like surviving. And it didn't fly out. And so I was like, okay, whatever. So I walked away. I thought it'd come back in an hour or whatever, see if it flew out. I kind of wanted to see it fly out so I could see.
I wanted it to fly out and
freedom.
Then just like shit on your front door.
and then mock me,
right.
Like see, haha, fucker.
Right.
So I came back in an hour. It's still there. I'd go grab this like broom and
beat it to death.
Did not kill it. I went like this and I shoot it and it flew away. And it flew away to freedom, to a whole life ahead of it. And
immediately eaten by a hawk.
Why does your brain go to such depressing? I guess maybe that's because that's life, right? Is that how?
Right, it's nature.
Like? Yes, it is. But that's not what happened. It actually flew and it was dancing and it was singing and it went up into a tree. I watched it and it got up there and then it winked at me. Mm-hmm. And I thought about if that were you, I would do the same thing. Thanks. I'd free you.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Joanne's laughing at me. Joanne, you want to say hi?
Hey there, baby girl.
You couldn't hear him, which is a really good thing. So. All right. Well, anyway, I have a lot of good karma out there in the world right now. I saved a bird that I actually hate.
That's a true test. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So should we talk about our partners?
We should, because it is 9:58. Because
we have
somebody
2 minutes to do this.
Someone is late. I don't have to say who, because everyone knows.
It's you.
Yeah, we have sponsors. Our first sponsor is EasyWay. And EasyWay's line of eco-friendly chemicals will get the job done faster, more efficiently, and will cost you a fraction of the cost per
screen.
EasyWay.
It's the easiest way. Boom. We're like pros at this now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like memorized, Right. That's you. I memorized all.
I like that and I don't like that. I like that we can crank them out, but I also these are our buds. Like I want to talk good stuff about
I
them
want to
because
talk
they're our
stuff about
friends.
them too. I do. Last time, actually, you said you didn't care and you wanted to skip them. And then I'm the one who said, no, can do.
I just want to give the goods.
It is 9:59. We only have 1 minute left.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk soft about this, but I was going to
talk
say
soft about Monarch.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. Monarch.
Monarch. Smooth, creamy inks. High opacity.
Ink better.
The best part is I know Joanne is sitting over like, what the fuck is happening right now?
She's on to other stuff. She's on to other stuff. She's
Okay.
not even.
Go ahead.
Ink better, print better, be better.
Moss.
Did you say live moss or just moss?
I said live moss, but it was so soft you couldn't tell. I'm waiting on you. Frank.
That's right. Rank. That's 5 F's.
And
That's
rank.
5 F's and rank and .com. .com. That'll take you to a spot where you can find out more about Frank. Graphic screen fashion.
You ready?
I think so.
Okay. Let's do this. What up?
Can you guys hear me good?
I can very well.
How's everybody's week going?
Oh, it's crazy. I feel like we just talked about this the other day.
I'm sorry.
But it's just balls to the wall right now.
Sorry, guys. I'm being rudely interrupted. Give me 1 second here.
It's okay.
Hey, Chad.
What is up?
Yeah, I mean, right now, obviously, we're recording in the middle of the day because 4th of July is this weekend. I've got 2 new hires this week.
Good.
So we're training them and just on top of like normal work. So like there's just enough stuff going on.
Yeah.
What's going on for you guys right now?
Right now is like weirdly enough, like our slow period. We always slow down right before 4th of July. And we have, I think, 5 new hires in the last like 3 or 4 months.
Ugh.
And it just like crushed us for a while, but we're getting in rhythm. Like this is the best week like for the guys printing that they've had since one of our main printers left. I think it was 3 months ago.
That's always super rough.
It was really rough. And and no fault to him. He had to leave. He was supposed to leave in September, but he had to leave like it's been a couple months. So it really, I was expecting for him to train people and train his replacements, and he wasn't able to do that. Yeah. So it just threw us through, you know. What do
you do for something like that? Like I've kind of had that scenario too, but do you just kind of like, do you have other people there or yourself that you can kind of be like, all right, like let's train you from scratch and see how it goes? We replaced him with somebody that was in my band with me, and he used to screen print with me when I had like a very simplistic setup. So he already knew how to screen print, and he came from like a machine shop. So it was right when we got the Cobra too. So we got a new press, and we lost people that were like our main people, and then it was a nightmare for a little bit. But luckily Braden, who is like the new hire, he like just figured out the Cobra, and he does like more like production management stuff now, but he really has saved the day, like with everything. That's and then awesome. When Ryan came in, that was, I felt like I was backed into a corner and I didn't know what to do. And that's when I reached out to Ryan, and, literally in 2 days. We're talking about Ryan Kasparian from Covered in Ink.
Yeah. Sorry. And so when he ended up coming for 2 days, and in 2 days, he, for one, replaced me. So I don't have to do nearly as much weird little stuff that I was doing. And he set up a hierarchy, and literally in 2 days, the whole shop felt so much better to like everyone.
Can you, I know we're going into this like hard, but
it's okay.
Kind of break down like what your problem was and then like what he did when he came in.
Dylan, that is
So
the perfect question, and that's exactly what I wanted to know. Yeah, I mean, like, what were you guys working on, and why did you call him before you got the Cobra and before that printer left, or did you call him after?
It was like, so I ordered the Cobra before the end of the year last year,
because of
and I ended up getting it in, I think it was May, and so I called Ryan actually after we had it, and I have a big blunder to tell you guys like about that. It's really funny. And once he told me, I felt so stupid, but basically I set the Cobra up wrong for staging, and we have to like go behind our other press for staging, because that's how we always did it. And he was like, this is stupid, pretty much.
You mean you installed the Cobra in the wrong spot?
The load and unload station, it needed set up differently so that we could stage against the dryer, basically, for the Cobra. But now we go behind the other press, and it's how we always did it. So I just never thought about it. That was like one big thing that I got from him, is like that I just never expected. But basically, back to what you guys were saying, I started realizing that we hit a stage with our business where the processes started to not make sense anymore. And I started to realize that I was running out of solutions, basically. So I started talking to him and realizing that we probably all hit this space where we don't expect, I never expected that something that I started with $800 to have 15 employees and to be as serious as what it is. So, I reached out to him knowing I've been following him for years. We like a lot of the same music. It just seemed like we had like a lot in common, which we do now that I know him and I realize how crazy he is. But, but I just realized that, that he is like, I think that having consultants coming in, no matter what stage you are, is so important to just like dial in the little things that sometimes we just don't really think about because we're in the middle of it.
Well, it's not even that you're in the middle of it. It's the fact of like, we've talked about this a bunch of times, but it's like, there's no training for this. Like you decide one day you're like in a band and you're like, I could sell merch, I can make money. You start a screen printing company and you learn tidbits here and there, but you're essentially self-taught. And you're just kind of like going through the motions, and eventually you run into a bottleneck, you fix it, and so on. But there's like guys like Ryan that have been in like a million places and they've learned from some of the best shops. And then they come to you and they're like, yeah, I've taken all this information and put it together in my mind of like how things should run. And they come to your place and you're just like, oh, I never thought of that. Or it's basically just a ton of, I never thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you said was... I think what you said was like exactly right, because you're in the middle of it and you're dealing and trying to juggle, a zillion things. You're being bombarded all day long with different stuff. And sometimes you go home and you think like, wow, how can we do this differently? And you're exhausted and maybe you just don't have the energy. But I think every shop, just like you said, no matter what level or scale or phase, whatever it is, wherever you are, it's healthy, isn't it? I mean, we talk about this, Dylan and I, all the time, just having even another shop here for a half day and
wife swap.
Yeah. Because you're just like you said, you're stuck in the middle of it and you don't necessarily see. And it's awesome to have somebody outside the loop that you can bounce ideas off of, or they can bring in a solution, just like Dylan said, because he's been in a bunch of other shops and he understands, or he's seen something else, or he just brings a fresh idea. And so it's awesome.
Yeah. And the thing is like, I like learning from people's mistakes. So like talking to him and like hearing his stories, like we've never gotten an order for 10,000 pieces before, and he's messed up an order for 10,000 pieces. So like him, like just being like, this is what you don't do. I learned from that side of things better than, you know what I'm saying? So it's great. But what's funny is when I started talking to him and I hired him before he even came here, I realized that we need to implement that through the rest of our departments because we do vinyl printing and we also do embroidery. And I had my tech from Barrington come in for an extra day when he was doing just routine maintenance. And in one day of him working with my embroidery guy, he said that he learned more than in 3 years that he worked here. And our stuff looks, he went from messing up stuff, not quite a bit, but it happened, right, to I actually don't worry about him more than anyone else on production. So I think that I felt too proud to do that before this year, but then I'm so glad that I was backed into a corner with it and had to, because I think it's so important. And I also have this weird thing in the back of my head where I know that bands are going to start touring and I have to fix things before that because it's going to get crazy, like, for us. And that's why I'm kind of glad that I know that it slowed down before the 4th and we build up, because we got to fix so much stuff before that. Right. I think it's important sometimes to have a little bit of a slow period. You know?
Yeah, for sure. But the thing is too, is like with Ryan is it's like, or, you know, other consultants is it's just kind of like I said, they get all this knowledge from all these other places and they come to you with like, oh, this is what I've learned. But I think the biggest thing with the owners is they just need to get over the fact of like that we don't know everything and like we're not all like smart as shit. Like there's people out there that like blow my mind on like how knowledgeable they are on certain subjects. Mm-hmm. Just like even going to M&R again, I've been there a bunch of times, but I went there last week and it was like I walked around the warehouse and like each department kind of has like the workers and the, you know, people that are building stuff and or whatever, but there's also like the R&D people or the people who are just like trying to build new shit that doesn't exist. Yeah. You know, they're trying to build new technologies and stuff. Those people are so fucking smart. You know what I mean? Like I was just sitting down talking to some of them about things and I was like, oh yeah, we have issues with this. Or, you know, what do you think about this? And they're just like, you can tell they like pause and they're just like calculating in their brains, you know, like the engineer part of them. And it's kind of like, you need people like that to come into your place that just have like experience, but also like super deep dive on in like certain topics. Like Andy, you had that emulsion guy in, what was it? Was it Emulsion Guru or whatever his name was?
Yeah, it was Kevin from Chromaline. And right, I think
that dude just studies emulsion.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you were saying, Andy, like we're all busy with like all this other stuff all day long, business and everything else. We don't have time to just like dedicate years of our life to being like, how do I figure out the best emulsion? You know what I mean?
And we're not going to go to school to be like a chemist. You know?
It's like bring that dude in, pay the fucking whatever it is. It's worth it.
Michael, I think you hit on like such an important point is that you can't be too proud. You know, like sometimes I've found myself, I don't want to ask for help and it actually costs me, you know, more. And so I got to the point where, and it's actually one of my questions later, my question is, I need help with the hothead because I know both of you run the hothead. And so I was like,
same.
Oh, well, then maybe Dylan, I hate the fact that Dylan's going to help, but you know, maybe Dylan can help us both. Maybe Dylan can help us both because, or somebody messaged me because we put the hothead on the press, not to change subject. We can talk about this later, but the hothead on the press, struggled with it for like a day, didn't have time, too busy, tore it off. And then just, you know, it's sitting on a shelf right now because I know it works. I know it does. People run it all the time. In fact, you said you had, I thought 2, you got another one.
Yeah.
And so I need help figuring it out, but I need to ask for, sometimes I just need to ask for help because if, you know, you can either have a problem, not do anything about it and just go throughout your week and month and year or whatever and have it cost you more and more and more and more, or just get the help, find a solution, whatever that costs. Maybe it costs way less than what it, you know, going the whole year with a problem would cost. And so I don't know, I'm all for it. I like asking for help. I ask friends for help, friends asking me for help. And then also though, when you have a dedicated person like Ryan, who is just going to be devoted to you for a day or a week or whatever it is, well, then that's a whole different level of help. And you can probably get to a spot way quicker.
Yeah. And the question is with the hothead, is it on the Cobra or is it on a Sportsman?
I have a attachment for both, both
Okay.
Cobra and Sportsman, but it's not necessarily why is it not like jiving with this press or not? It's more about just how to, what head to run it in, fleece
So-
versus t-shirt and all this kind of stuff.
I mean, that on hoodies is insane. It makes the print it's so crazy. But we use it on our Cobra, which is a 14 color. We use it after the last flash. So there's two or three heads after it for like the highlights. So we try to flash a couple color, or we like print a couple colors or whatever. And then we actually hot head after it. So flash and then hot head it. And it makes the
other
print.
things for us anyway, the other things that are tricky are like speed, pressure. Also, are you using Teflon, or do you have the roller or the iron and all this kind of stuff? Because
I have the iron, but I kind of like almost think that some of my problems are coming from that instead of using a roller, because we don't just use the hot head. We also use the Action Engineering.
Yeah.
So on our Saber, we had really good luck with putting the hot head in number 1. And then we would print, flash, and then we would roll it and then continue. And we had really good luck with that. But the Cobra is different. It was creasing because we were adding too much pressure, I think, for one. And it seems like it changes it a little bit for us, at least, when the head is coming down and how it's reacting with it.
Yeah. Do you know, did you buy that regulator? There was like a part, I don't know if it ships with it or you have to buy it like extra, but it's a little air regulators that you can adjust with what you're talking about. Otherwise it kind of slams into the pallet because it's so heavy.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't get the regulator, so I will. I'm going to look into it right after we get off here, because I'm trying to take, my main thing with like the shop is just trying to take friction out of everybody's day. Right. It's like I feel like that is my main objective every single day as an owner. So it's really frustrating when we use stuff, and I'm sure you guys are in the same boat, and it doesn't work for whatever reason, and they just take it off instead of actually figuring it out, but they don't have time to figure it out.
Right.
Right.
So, but
I feel like that's where you as an owner come in on the weekends and you dial it in and figure it out, and then you present it to them later.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I want to say that the main thing that I got from Ryan coming in is that I didn't realize that I was doing this at all, but I unfortunately was like setting people up to fail. So, and it was like this, I switched so much stuff after I realized that, but I realized I was like, hey, you're not doing this right. Instead of being like, what is going on that's making this not happen correctly, and how can we make it not happen ever again, kind of thing, or limit it, And we started having meetings every morning. Like, I know Andy does that. And I was having people come in at different times. So like everybody that printed came in at 8, everybody else came in at 8:30. And I realized that it was like messing up the rhythm of the whole entire shop. Just like the mindset of that, it's probably my fault as the management or at my actual manager. It's how we're teaching people incorrectly, or not having enough people to actually teach somebody that's getting trained. It like changed my whole perspective of like being an owner, you know what I mean? And like what I should do and my vision of the shop. But we had a huge wave of negativity that happened after that printer that left. And I started telling people, like, we got to be positive. Screen printing in this industry is 95% problem solving. So if there is a problem, you have to be prepared 100% just to go into it with like a clear head instead of flipping out or whatever is happening. And it literally in a week after Ryan came in, the whole shop is happy to be together, and they're working as a team now instead of like kind of being against each other a little bit unintentionally. But it would be like one printer saying, hey, this person is getting way more done every day because they're getting this kind of job. They're getting this kind of job instead of like high color count or whatever it is. And I just realized that we made it like, okay, let's look at total impressions per day. And it made them a team. So like they want to get higher numbers all the time now. And we're trying to bump it up like 10% a week until we're up to where we think that we should be. And now they're working as a team and they're getting so much more done. Like yesterday was blistering hot in the shop and they got more done than they did in one day than like the last probably 3 months. It's crazy how a mindset will make so much difference, you know? So, and everybody deals with negativity, I'm sure, in their shop, but it's nice not to have that looming over the shop.
Right. It's like that Friday Night Lights saying, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. You just got to have that. Like you guys got to chant that in the morning, like that you're a team. And I feel like the negative thing is a huge factor.
Oh my God. The moment that the whole shop becomes like that, we are going to crash and burn no matter what. It could be the best day any other day, but they're going to get so mad at the littlest stuff that's going wrong because we all know that no matter what, there's stuff that's going to go wrong. Like it's the industry.
Yeah.
You know?
I had I can't remember. I think it was Monday. I had a pretty difficult Monday here. And, not that all Mondays are challenging or anything. I don't think that. It's just this particular Monday. There's just a series of things in a row that went wrong, and you know how that goes. And all of a sudden, you're kind of dazed, and you're like, "Oh my gosh!" And I actually started walking around this building, and I was like, "Am I doing the right thing with my life?" You know, like, wait, hold on a second. Like, this is. I don't know. I actually questioned it. You know, I've done that several times before, but on Monday I was like, I'm just not sure I'm in the right industry at this point because there was just too many things. And so I came back to the office and I sat down, just took a breather, you know, took a moment away from it. I was like, I don't want to quit screen printing. I'm okay. And I went and I asked a guy, a press operator, who's also a designer, but he's on press right now because like everyone, we need press operators, we need production, and he's able to do both. And so he's on press a lot. He doesn't necessarily want to be on press a lot, but he's being a team player and he understands that's what we need. But I had said something to him earlier and I knew that I had a feeling he took it the wrong way. And us as leaders, or as owners, sometimes we have good intentions with what we say, and it's either isn't communicated well by me or it's misinterpreted, by somebody here. And I knew that was really more of the case. And I was like, hey, you got a second? Let's chat. And so we came in here because I didn't want him frustrated or irritated with me, because just like you said, there was an issue and I was trying to get to a solution, and I didn't want to be negative about it. I was trying to be positive about it. And so anyway, we sat down in here and I told him like exactly that. Like, I'm not frustrated at all. I was really just trying to figure something out. And here, this actually problem is more complex than you think. And it was one of those, so it kind of started like this. It was a one color, two color. And what I mean by that is it was just white ink, but it had halftone work in it. And so a lot of times what we do, well, it's 50 shirts or more, we're going to burn 2 whites anyway. And we're going to have an underbase white, and the highlight white will not contain usually any of the halftone work. You know what I'm saying? So instead of PFPing one screen and then losing some detail because you're potentially smashing out a little bit or whatever, we burned two different screens. But this was only for 36 shirts. We didn't invoice them for two whites, just one. And so I don't know how you guys, it's kind of an interesting question. I don't know how you guys handle that, but when you have an issue where you really do need 2 whites to make that design look the best, and you only have 36 shirts, do you build a customer for 2 whites? Do you burn 2 whites anyway, just to make it look good? Or do you burn 1 white and PFP it and it doesn't look quite as good? So, I mean, that's a decision that we have to have and we have to know here. I think, going into each job, because what's our mission? Is our mission to have, no matter what, the very best looking print? Well, then we're burning 2 whites. If there's 10 shirts or if there's 1,000 shirts, we're burning 2 whites. We don't care. But if our mission here is to get it as close, good looking as possible, engineer the art so that it's good looking as possible, PFP, anything under 50, and then burn 2 whites for anything over 50. So, I mean, those are tough decisions. You know, it's like I always kind of struggle with that one, actually. What do you guys do? Just curious.
2 whites.
Always, no matter what?
We do 2 whites unless if it would be faster. And like, even with like our Saber is our small job press. So if we have 24 pieces and it's white, we still build a customer for that. Unless if it's like, it's a special situation.
So you're saying that really you're building 2 color. If there's a detailed design, a detailed graphic that requires 2 whites to look the best, you tell the customer that and you build them for 2 color, or you just build 1 color?
It's on our mock-up, so it just shows white as an underbase and white as a highlight weight. We just tell them that we need to use 2 to make it appropriate. And nobody honestly says anything about that. But it's all like, for us, it's just like the hot head actually makes a big difference when we're running orbital on the Saber. Like the prints still look just as good with if we do it a certain way, like if we run orbital still. But it's just all
orbital?
speed.
What's that mean?
It's revolver.
Revolver for workhorse. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's it just depends on the situation. Because like I said, I just try to make their days as easy as possible. And if it's set up for us, Dylan, I think that we're kind of similar in ways with our shops, because most of my orders are under 250 pieces. So setup is a big deal for me. That's our make or break pretty much.
Right.
You know?
So, we'll PFP if it's like, you know, a smaller order like Andy, kind of where it's like, if it's under 50 pieces, but only really if it's like a big bold thing. Like if it has any detail in it at all, we'll do 2 whites, because we know if you're going to PFP, it's going to smash out any detail or whatever. So yeah, we generally, if anything has any detail or if it's a multicolor, we're going to do 2 whites. But I actually don't charge for the highlight white. Okay. Which probably it might not be the best idea, but I don't know. We've kind of always just made that decision. I feel like it's an artistic decision.
I like that. I think that's good. We don't bill for a highlight white over 50 because why would we? It's going to make us faster. You know, like we don't want to go orbital.
If anything, it's a bonus for us.
It's a bonus for us. There's no way we're going to print 100 shirts with 2 whites. I mean, there's no way we're going to print 100 shirts white ink without 2 whites. I mean, it's just, you go around once, right? That's your whole goal.
Do that 10 times a day and see how much you get done. You know,
right.
It would just crush your numbers, I think.
Also, I mean, the way we, make our whites, and because we use thin thread, if we PFP a 158 thin thread, it's going to be way too thick, and so our second white is always higher mesh than our underbase, and so otherwise we just have too much white ink going down when we PFP anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. We started using thin thread, but we're slowly switching over to only thin thread, and it's almost at this point, it's confusing the guys to switch between the two. Yeah. Which makes sense because they're different tools, Yeah.
We had the exact same problem. And we're almost out of it now. I had a couple hundred screens that were still good screens. They just weren't thin thread.
Wait a second. You told me that you kicked those motherfuckers off your...
You didn't let me finish.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. You ready, Michael?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we had a couple hundred screens that were not thin thread. They weren't Franks. I got Franks, realized how much better they were. We get the shirt Kong special. The only I asked for. And yeah, it makes the world of difference. I mean, like I said, long story short, I pretty much just went to Frank and I was like, hey, I need, to replace almost all my screens with with this stuff. Like the thing is too, is like you said, you look at it as an owner of like, man, I just bought all these older screens and I don't want to toss them. There's not really anything like I can still print a ton of jobs with these. They're fine. It's just, I know quality wise in my heart that like, I'm going to get a better print out of with this new technology or this new screen. So we had some that still like, we had 110s that we're still using for like glitters or, you know, just different inks or whatever that we were going to use it for. And then, so we're slowly like weaning them out. But again, today I had a couple 230s still that weren't hydro. And I'm teaching a new guy, like his first day was Monday. And I told him, I was like, well, I was talking to him about dialing in exposure and stuff, and that me and Brian are going to go in and like super dial even more so than what we have now pretty soon. And I showed him, I was like, well, look at this 230, like hold it up to the light in the dark room. And then look at this hydro 230. I was like, you can tell that there's like more emulsion on the hydro 230 than there is on the regular 230. And I was like, that's like baking a cake that's a 1-layer cake versus a cake that's a 2-layer cake. I was like, they can't have the same cook times. You know what I mean? Like they have to be slightly different. So like you said, it's another tool for the guys, and if they don't dive deep into all that stuff, they're just like, I use the 230. I don't understand like what the problem is.
Mm-hmm. We actually put little tags on our screens that say like, for thin thread, we say like, it will work for this mesh and this mesh, 'cause they kind of like can work for both.
Right.
And it seems like it really helped like the dark room just kind of be able to see like what they can actually use for. I try to dumb stuff down as much as possible.
Right.
So that,
you should. I mean, you should try to dummy proof things as much as possible.
Isn't it painful though? Because like you said, you have these perfectly good standard mesh frames, and to go and like take a knife out and then cut this mesh out of it seems like to go against everything I've ever done. You know what I mean? And so also what's super painful is when thin thread gets even the tiniest of holes, we'd bust it out because I don't want it to fail on press because that's way more expensive. But what I had to tell myself is whenever he was cutting out, when I was converting over, I would send Frank 100 at a time, like a pallet at a time. I think there was maybe 110 or 20, whatever there was. And I would actually cut out 100 and something, you know, mesh that was fine, that I could print with. And what I had to tell myself was that whatever this cost, you know, $25 or something each time I did it, I'm going to make back in the first job I run with one of these things, you know, because either I'm not going to be double stroking something, I'm just going to be single, which is going to make me faster, you know, all these different things the benefits of thin thread. I'm gonna get that money back. And so because it was tough, like I was like, why am I cutting this out? Like I could actually sell this to somebody probably or whatever, you know.
Right.
But
well, my problem was that, and we're gonna talk about Frank for a second because you know whatever. But
he's the best,
right? So all the old screens were just kind of like, I honestly don't know where they came from. Like I just called my local distributor. I was like, I need screens. We got them. But like you can tell the quality and like the thickness and the sturdiness of the aluminum.
I was actually going to ask you guys
Frank's
about that
versus like the other ones. So the problem was I didn't want to do like I had 100 something screens that I was going to toss. I don't want to toss them. I don't want to cut them. I don't want to have Frank restretch his mesh on these old frames. So what I did is I basically called a buddy who has a shop local to me, and I was like, hey. I've got like 100 screens you can have if you want them. Like that's what he's using is standard thread. So I was like, I've got 110, 156, and 230. I was like, they're yours if you want them. He's like, how much do you want for them? I was like, I want them out of my shop. So he came, backed up, took all the screens, left, and then now they're gone.
You just gave him thousands of dollars.
Right. That's what I told him. I was like, I just gave you like free. You're not I mean, he's technically a competitor. I was like, here's a bunch of free screens.
You just gave him 100 whatever problems.
$20 screens.
Yeah. Hopefully he has a Newton meter. You know?
Yeah.
But
they weren't that bad. They just weren't Frank's.
The question is that were you realizing that they weren't tri-locking properly, but Frank's were tri-locking better?
Yes.
We were 100% talking about this like 2 days ago.
Yep.
And I actually got a bunch of random frames restretched, and they're still not tri-locking. So I think I'm just going to sell a lot of them or sell all of them, because at the end of the day, it's like you want to take the variables out of anything that you can.
Yeah.
And
well, the problem is like on any press, on the Workhorse or on your new Cobras, like basically if the screen is warped slightly, like if it's tweaked like this a little bit, like when you lock it in,
it'll shift. It's
going to shimmy slightly, and you're going to have registration issues. And you're like, man, why am I always having registration issues? It's because those frames are slightly tweaked. You could have tweaked it doing anything in the shop, cleaning it, putting it in iMage or whatever you're doing, slightly tweaked it because it's thinner wall aluminum. Or when they restretched it, they could have just, stretched already bent frame. But like I said, Frank's frames are like heavier duty, like thicker aluminum.
It's that my grandpa was a welder by trade. So I look at things like that and I'm like, wow, this weld is really nice. And I can tell that it's like, he has his stuff dialed in, but those, like all those people on forums, and I'm not talking bad about them, that they're like, just buy Chinese frames. They're half the price or whatever.
I've done it.
I have too. And literally, if you have a Newton meter and you're checking them, they're like, some of them are unusable right out of the box, and you're not going to have that with someone like Frank.
Another thing we've had with a ton of those screens is the welds aren't fully done, and the frames will fill with water in the tip tank.
Yeah, that's always the best. I love that.
I've had whole batches of frames. Like I just bought, a bunch of these Chinese screens or whatever, and then we dunked them, and then over like half the screens were full of water. So we had to like drill holes in the end of all the screens so that after we dipped them, all the water would run out.
Yeah, I mean, if the gauge of the aluminum isn't thick enough, then you can't stretch it as high as he stretches it, because he stretches
it's not strong enough.
He stretches it super high because he knows it's going to relax. And so he stretches it again and then glues it to the frame. And if you do that and it's too much tension and you glue it to a thin gauge aluminum frame, it's going to warp on you, and so not Frank's though. He doesn't put up with that.
Yep.
No, it's nice. I think that it goes a long way to just be able to call somebody and get an answer from someone that you really look up to. And like, if there's somebody that doesn't look up to him in this industry, it's pretty crazy to me. He knows so much. And I don't think he's really like that much of a printer, but he knows that side.
He knows his craft.
So, yes. Yeah. Right. It's so important.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But, do you guys have issues with your tri-locks? I noticed that Shirt Kong is not using registration marks anymore. I don't know if you're still using registration marks.
No, we don't.
We can't get to that point, and that's one of the things that we're working on with Ryan is I feel like we have a Dalfit CTS. We have the good stuff, but it's we're still having so many issues. We're getting close, but there's still some stuff that's like randomly off that we're trying to dial in. But I'm hoping to fix that in the next.
What do you think?
Or whatever.
What do you think it could be? Because if you've got new good screens, you've got a CTS that's good. The press is brand new.
Yeah, I mean,
are your guys not lightly or kind of babying when they pull the screen into the tri-lock? Are they kind of just being loose and rough with it, or are they kind of just like?
I'm not talking bad about Workhorse, but we have issues. I feel like because those U-channel clamps that clamp down onto the screen.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
I'm not talking bad about them, but please change that for your future presses.
When we had one, we literally thought about calling a machine shop and making like flat with the teeth M&R brackets for those.
Same. That's what we like. And we're not really supposed to use a hothead on it because there's no way to attach it. But like my cousin, he is a professional race car driver, and he just fabricated one for me.
Right.
So, and that was cool. But I mean, their carriage is even a little bit.
That gold peak just came from the heavens.
I don't know if Dylan can do that quite yet, but I got a magic trick where I just.
Oh, look at that.
Look out. Yours is bigger. Your
Yeah,
T.
it is.
Just your T. But look at that, man.
Just the
I'm
tip.
addicted to Propel. I know it's not as cool as Gold Peak, but you know.
It's all right. It's all right.
Cheers, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's user error, and I think that some of the frames are wonky. You know,
Most so 99 out of 100, it's going to be something. It's not the tri-lock, and so I start at the beginning. I would anyway, and maybe you already have, but I think I mentioned this once before. Like I would start at the beginning with the wax, right? And I would I think I said this on Justin's Oklahoma Shirt Company episode, where I would go and take a frame, put it in your wax, image it with just like a reg mark on it, and then pull it off, put that same frame that you just imaged and put it back on and image that reg mark. And so just to make sure they're exactly lined up. Okay. So now all of a sudden, if they are, you've eliminated your CTS, right? And so then you just kind of work your way towards everywhere where it could be going wrong. And so I know that one time we were having issues with the tri-lock, and it was the fact that our tri-lock pallet we weren't tightening it down enough, because I don't know if you've noticed, but we had to wrench on that bolt every once in a while because they loosen up a little bit, and you weren't able to tighten the tri-lock pallet on tight enough anyway. You know what I mean? It has to be.
Yeah, there's variance in the brackets, probably. Which
the other thing
sense.
too is that do you have the tri-lock or the tri-sync?
Sync.
Okay, so you can. You can see if it lights up.
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna like that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going on vacation for the first time in like forever next week, but after that, I think we're gonna dive into that. So
yeah,
but
there's something there that's going, like you just said, there's something there, and it's going to take just going through every step to figure out where it's failing.
Eliminating what's correct first.
Yeah. My manager's, I don't know if I told you guys, but my manager's off this week. So, honestly, 3 months ago, I would probably be losing my mind, but it's a lot calmer now, which is what I strive for, So, things go crazy.
I've been talking to you for a long time, but like go back and give us the beginning, like how you got started, how you got where you are. I know you got a new building now, you got new equipment, you got all this other stuff, but kind of go through that story.
I started screen printing in 2009, 2010, and I did it because I was terrified to not be able to tour and be able to continue to tour with my band. So it was in I don't remember when gas was $5 a gallon, but I feel like that was like a trigger for me, to kind of figure out a way to like alleviate so that we could get gas pretty much. So I ended up buying it was like a Chinese, it was a used like 4-color, 1-station. I have no idea. I think actually, yeah, but I bought it off somebody in Philly. So we met halfway. I had no idea what I was doing at all. This is hilarious, and I'm sure I'm going to get laughed at for this, but I did not realize about ink, like 701 or anything like that. So I just never realized how any of it worked. And it was I think I was at the beginning stages of like Cat Spit and like the Ryonet videos and all that. But I knew that ink wouldn't cure unless it was heated up, but I missed the memo of emulsion wouldn't do that. So I coated screens and just left it there, and then took me like 4 hours to clean out my emulsion scoop because I just left it dry. So, and that was way before I realized what registration marks were and like everything,
Yeah.
So,
well, you don't know what you don't know. So you figured that out quick.
And I used to help my grandpa in his garage all the time. He passed a few years before I started printing, and I started printing in his garage, unknowing that he ran extension cords to outlets. So I almost burnt the place down like in a month. So I lost that space, and I've moved. I think I've moved 7 times already, which I hopefully never want to move again because it's a nightmare every time, you know. But yeah, I was touring basically full time at certain sections of that, and I would go on tour with a bunch of shitty merch that I printed, and then on tour I would just kind of problem solve and watch videos the whole month and try to figure out and ask friends. Because do you guys know Commonwealth Press in Pittsburgh?
Mm-hmm.
Dan is from Punxsy, and then Corey, their main printer, is from Punxsy. So I kind of like looked up to them and asked them for advice when I was getting started. So, but yeah, so I started that, and I was touring like in a year and 6 months. I think I toured like 320 shows in 11 countries. And that's like when I like became like a screen printer to me, because we sold like over 4,000 shirts that year.
Mm-hmm. And that you printed.
That I printed. Yeah. And that's what kept us alive. Like that's pretty much. And you like made buttons, Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go on tour and I would hit up people and be like, can I make your buttons for you? And give myself a couple of days and then go to Kinko's or whatever there was.
Exactly. Yep.
And then I would be like, okay, I don't have to steal from Walmart today to get food, you know?
Right.
So, but yeah, so Alex, who works for me, is my first employee, but he started working for me in 2012 and he's still here, luckily. But we just like, I think we're very similar because Punxsy I couldn't survive with just doing work in Punxsutawney. There's 5,000 people that live here. So I'm so glad that I got the tour because that's like where I got most of my clients. And
yeah, so those of you who don't know, Michael is from, I guess you shorten it and call it Punxsy. And that is where apparently groundhogs come from.
It is.
And although I think
that's what they call him, Punxsutawney Phil.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think when Ryan came through here on his way back, he told me that he was calling it not a groundhog. He was calling it something else. What was it?
A gopher. Some like dumbass thing.
On purpose, because he knew that everybody got pissed off. He's like, "Oh, I heard the gophers from here or whatever," and they look at him like, "What?"
Yeah. It's a weird little town, but it's crazy because like I said, there's like 5,500 people, 5,000 people that live here. And if it's on a weekend on February 2nd, there can be like 30 to 50,000 people here. So it gets crazy for like,
why?
Just Groundhog's Day. Like people like love coming. They want to reason.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's definitely a strange thing to I guess like bring income in for a town, you know?
Yeah.
But I never realized the reach of it because I'm just so used to it. Like we just got off school and for that day and it was just a normal thing. But I was in Sweden and somebody was like, I love Groundhog's Day. And I'm like, where, like, I tried so hard to get away from this and I'm like across the world and somebody like approached us about it. And I'm like, I can't get away from it. So I've just embraced it at this point, you know?
You should. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I hope you print the shirts for that.
There's like a little bit of, I have a little bit of animosity towards that. My family is pretty much, most of them are accountants. My dad is a CPA in town. He has, like I said, there's 5,000 people and he has 2,500 clients and they're mostly from Punxsy. And he did the Chamber of Commerce, all their taxes for, I think 16 years for free. And they like, don't give us very much work from it, which I don't really know if I even want a lot of it because, they decline most of the artwork that we've ever submitted. And like most people submit, like, it's like, I know all the shops in this area because I do so much, I do so little local work that all the shops in the area talk to me, but they all like are a little bit not like that with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's, I don't know how much I really would even want to do it. It seems like it's such a hassle,
Could it be
You know?
because the design you submitted for the groundhog was like metal themed,
A
possibly?
little bit.
And
I did a Minecraft themed one, and they turned it down, and I thought it was like the dumbest thing in the world because like every little kid would have probably
Right.
wanted it, and it was Phil, and he was like pixelated and awesome, and but the one thing that they did get off of us is we made a Year of the Hog shirt, and we had Phil riding a Harley, and it was like an 8 color, and it was sick, and they took that, and it did really well, which was like super funny, but yeah, it's definitely strange, you know, but there's a lot of positives of being from a small town and doing what we do. I feel like
For sure.
I hire punks, and I'm it works out 98% of the time because they don't want to work in some weird factory.
Yep.
And we have retirement and health insurance that's really good. So it's nice that I get to like take people from my scene that went to shows and
take care
whatever, and take care of them. And
Right.
it's awesome, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
but yeah, like we just moved here back to like what you were saying about us moving into our warehouse. I owned a 2,400 square foot building in town, and it had 2 rentals above it. So like I never actually paid rent really, or not paid rent, paid like for the mortgage, like the rentals paid for that. And when we moved here, we moved into a 7,500 square foot building and had so much stuff in the 2,400 square foot building that we filled up the warehouse. It was crazy. And it kind of upset me because I was like, oh man, I should have got a bigger building, you know?
I remember that conversation. You were like, oh, I can't wait to move. And then when you moved, you're like, fuck.
Yeah. It's like, better burn this place down and build something bigger.
Right.
I'm just kidding. But we have a house out front too that I own. And the lady, the day that I said that I was going to buy the warehouse, the lady walked up to me and she was like, would you want to buy my house too? And so we like own like a portion of like the block now, but she sold me a house for $45,000 that is worth way more than 45,000. Another beauty of living in an area like this, because people aren't pushing down the doors to come here. You know?
Wait, so you moved into that house across the street, or you just bought it and that's what do you do with the house?
I was renting to people that worked here, and they got like super cheap rent because I knew that they would take care of it. That printer that I said left, he was living there, but we're taking over that house, and I'm just going to have like my office and like, I think my manager's office is going to be over there too.
That's that's what they did in the old days. That's what they did here in St. Louis. So Budweiser started here, or Anheuser-Busch, and they have where the brewery is. They have this town called, it's just a part of St. Louis. It's called Soulard, and they built all of these houses, you know, I guess like for people to move into, like their employees to move into. And so, just, you know, and they were really close to the brewery, and they provided good, like quality housing, you know, so they didn't have to find a place to live and all that kind of stuff. And so that's pretty cool. And like the old days too, when people like bakers or whatever, or delicatessens, you know, the bakery was downstairs and then they lived above it.
Upstairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what,
I always thought that was cool.
That's like, I lived with my parents until I was 30 because I toured so much, and my dad just has like a whole apartment in his basement. So when I moved out, I moved above the shop, and I realized that I should never, ever do that ever again. I do not want to live even as close as I am now to the shop, because I would wake up literally at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, I think that I didn't turn off that flash. And I'd walk down, and then I'd be like, well, I'm already up, so I might as well print this job or something stupid. And I just quit sleeping. So it got like pretty crazy, but now having a little bit of distance from the shop is really important. The house that is beside the shop is actually nicer than the house that I live in, but I refuse to live in it because I don't want to get trapped in thinking about work all the time.
Yeah, I feel you.
So,
I mean, when I was in my garage, it was the exact same way. You know, you couldn't ever escape really, and people would come by. It didn't matter what day or what time of day or anything. So, which was kind of good when I first started, which I thought it was great, you know, but after a while, it was not great. And so, yeah, I like the idea of, I guess it sounds neat to live above your, you know, that shop just because you don't have to commute or deal with traffic or anything. But
Yeah.
in the end, it's probably a bad thing. Like you said, with personalities like Dylan and me and you, it sounds like it's probably bad because we would never
want to
leave.
be there.
Yeah.
I like being here 7 days a week, but I realize that it's not really good for me. So I'm trying to change that, but I like being in rhythm. And I feel like if I leave for even 3 or 4 days, I'm like, I slowly like fall out of rhythm. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes me a couple of days to get back in. It's getting better now. Like, but when, like I said, before Ryan came, it was pretty bad. I'm a very chill person and I was like grinding my teeth and I've never done that before. So like my stress level was like out of control. So
are you done with Ryan now, or is he coming back again?
No, I didn't tell him this, but I'm probably going to hire him. He'll probably do 2 days a month for, I'm guessing 6 months. I want to go through the whole shop because it's like, why like stop if it's working better?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I would, and our, like my objective is that Alex and I can leave and go on vacation together, even if it's kind of local. I want us to go on vacation together for a week and the shop run without the two people running it.
See how it does.
Because that, I mean, to me, that means that it's running appropriately, you know?
Right.
I agree.
So,
That's what one of my goals, I don't know if it was 5 or whatever years ago, because somebody told me, I didn't think of this. Somebody told me, Andy, you have to first be able to leave for a week. Like set up processes, set up a team, whether it's, you know, key holders, like who opens, who closes, all of these things, right? Set up a team so that you can leave first just for a week. Like, can you leave for 1 week, and then make it so that can you leave for 2 weeks, and then so on. You know what I mean? And so how can you do that? How do you get there? And it's actually really, really hard, you know? And so it takes some work. And like you said, even if it takes 6 months, it'll be so worth it.
Oh my God. It's crazy how just little changes over the course of 6 months would make forever, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's crazy. Like I just never realized how easy it would be to like feel like the shop like enslaved me. I don't know how else to say it other than that. When I went into business, my uncle, he owns a scrap yard, which is very successful, and he did it as a side business. And he worked 7 days a week his whole life. He came from nothing, and he is doing, he's really honestly rich. And he called me and he goes, so I heard you're going into business for yourself. Now you get to pick what 7 days a week you get to work. And I laughed at him, but then it became my reality really quick, you know? So it's cool though. It's like the building that we have now, our warehouse has a lot of history. It was called Cromer's Dairy. So when this place was built originally, like the first section of it, it's really weird. Like if you guys ever come here, it's very punk in a weird way. It just like the building doesn't, you could tell that they kept adding on to it pretty much. But the building's so old that they used to have horse and carriage come and get the milk to deliver it. So like we have like little, I don't know if you can see it, but we actually have stuff that people have given us from Cromer's Dairy now that they know that we're here.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have history in the space that you're at, you know. It's people like
yeah, like in my building, they used to I guess like way back in the day, there was like it was like an ag way, and it sold like grain and everything else. So that's why like now we're thinking about, because like I take over, you know, well over half of it. And then I made 2 rental spaces, but we're trying to like every year, like fully renovate it. Well, this last year we finished like everything on the inside is like completely.
It looks awesome.
But the outside still needs some work, but we have this big block wall at the end that we ended up like painting with like that super high end, like waterproof paint. It's all white, but I want to get one of my buddy designers like Zach Newton or something that does like really good like hand-drawn script stuff. I want to like get something that and paint like a mural on that white wall, and then I want to like redo signs for each business out front that like hang under the overhang, and I want to call the building like the Granary. So it's like, if we're gonna have a show like in our office, we're talking about doing like recordings or live shows or something, we kind of just want to say like, at the Granary, like call the building the Granary, and then it's like Upstate Merch the Granary and whatever else. But I guess for a time there was like somebody bought or used a chunk of this building and they were making like Model A's or something in it.
That's crazy. Yeah, your building's really cool. I was there when we got that flash on the view.
Yeah, it's even come a long way since then. Yeah.
Yep. I think that me and you come from like a very similar place with that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But I definitely wish like where Shirt Kong is, it's like, I feel like everything that I see from you is like the craziest. Your building looks so nice. And our building has a lot of crazy.
Yeah, Dylan, I paid him to say that.
Right.
I did.
Well, the truth of it is like, we know like this isn't a knock, but like your building is modern and it's in like it's a new building. So like you can easily like make new lighting and you can, paint the floors. But like our building is like 100 and something years old. And what me and my dad, like going through the whole thing, just like things being not level or like having to set expectations on like how things are built and the way things are doing. We just call it character. So anytime anything is like fucked up that you kind of just have to make as pretty, you have to put lipstick on a pig. Like we're just like, it's character. So like we can only make our building as like beautiful as we can. And then after that, it's just like, oh, it's rad. It's got character. It's old. It's like, you do things a certain way.
I quit thinking that it was going to ever be beautiful. Yeah, I just want it to be like.
It's your own and cool. It's just, that's what it is.
Yeah. Like when you walk into our shop, it goes into like where our receptionist is and you can see the presses with it. And we didn't change any of that. It was just like, it was what it was. But I like that people can come in and actually see the process. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, is Shirt Kong like that a little bit? That was something that
this was the fourth, maybe the fourth time. Like you said, you moved 7 times or something. So this time I knew that I wanted that feel. Like how when you go into a restaurant and the kitchen's right there and you're almost there with them as they cook. You can smell it, see it, all that kind of stuff. I wanted that same experience here, at this t-shirt shop. And so when you walk in, and you're at the front counter ordering shirts or whatever, you see that, they print here and you can see that, like you said, share the process. We give tours all the time and it's just so easy just to walk back there. I had to have the fire department out here. I was nervous because at first they were like, wait a minute, there's no wall separating this stuff. So I had to give them this list of every single product I was keeping in this building and the chemical composition of it. So that they would, because otherwise there's rules. I guess there's code that you can't have. You have to have.
Did you have that list already? Did you already have that list?
No. Like I went through and I had to say, so here's my ink and here's what's in it. So that's not like flammable or whatever. I think was their concern. But I really like that because, then you don't forget. It's like Krispy Kreme. The first time I ever went to a Krispy Kreme, I was blown away. I was like, like it came to town and there was lines of people in cars just to get in. And when you got in, you saw this assembly line of donuts and it was just magical. And so I wanted that same process here.
I think Voodoo Donuts kind of took that too. Like when I went certain Voodoo Donuts, I think that they were kind of like that.
Oh yeah.
Also.
Yeah. Do you ever have like the town or like the fire department or code ever fuck with you at your place?
So I had one guy come in and he was like, we're in a very residential, we're dead center in a residential neighborhood, which I kind of like too, because I didn't want walk-ins. So we had somebody come in and they're like, hey, the sewer is completely fine until it reaches you. And then it's purple the rest of the way down. And they're like, you can't act like this. Like you can't do this. So I ended up what's awesome is that it's a small town and everybody for whatever reason is related to me. So I literally, it was my uncle that told me, and I gave him the sheet, and he was like, I'm not even looking at this because I trust you that you aren't doing that, but I had to tell you. Right. But they don't really mess with me that much. I had to go and do a bunch of stuff because this building was used for storage for like an electrical company before I got it. And I had to go and tell them like why I think it should be a commercial building. And I'm like, it's a warehouse. So like, I don't really think that I have to say anything else other than that really. But yeah,
they were, have that issue?
Well, I'm just saying, like, I hear stories from you and like other people I've talked to that buy all these buildings, and they're like, oh, I had to do this to code. I had to have the fire company in. I have to have, this many fire extinguishers and this like sprinkler system and all this other stuff. Like, I have never had anybody come in here at all, like ever.
I haven't either, but I guarantee that both of us will next week because we said
we said something and we put it into the universe. 100%.
I would say a couple things to that. One, we live in a I guess a bigger city, and that's 100% why. It's just part of it. And two, I'm glad that they do, because one, I want the fire department. You don't want your place to burn down, and so when they come here, I want them to tell me if there's any problems. That whenever they find a problem, they don't fine you. They give you 30 days to fix it. It's not like they're coming in here trying to fuck with you. They come in and they're like, hey, Andy, guess what? Your emergency lights on your exit sign, the battery's out, and so you have to replace the battery. I mean, because, what if there is a fire and we're trying to get out and there's smoke and all this shit and you need light, and so it's important stuff. And so I like it when they come through. I think that they don't ever like hassle me. They are friendly, and I always am friendly with them. And I'm like, yeah, whatever we need, we'll fix it. And so I think it's a good thing.
Well, I'm not saying like I'm trying to get away with anything. And it also there's also different levels of different kinds of people too. Like there's people that are like, I'm getting away with this, or I definitely built this shitty, or like the previous owner owned this building who would run fucking extension cords through the wall to like plug shit in. Like I am the opposite of that. I am like, everything we're doing like as close to, if not better than what you would do to, just maintain it or get it by. Like when we redid the electric in this whole building, like even the offices, everything, we did conduit on the outside of the wall. Like there's no live electric in any walls in this building. Like it's all in conduit to where like I know a mouse isn't going to chew it.
Yeah, well,
I know if I have to fix it, it's right where it is.
So, I mean, remember Kellen's story? I mean, his shop burnt down, and what if they came through and said, hey, dude, like that extension cord's no good. And so I think it's important stuff. The other thing I would say to Michael, you saying that we have a nice building. One, I don't own it. And so when I restarted here, I had owned buildings prior, but this one, it was in 2009, and it was like a leaser's market. Like it was smart for us to lease. Like you didn't want to own a building right at that moment in time. And so we leased here, and that sucks, because we rooted in, we expanded and we expanded and expanded, but I don't have like if Dylan wants to put solar panels on his roof or buy a solar farm, he can. And if you guys invest in your building, like if you add something to it, that it's yours. It's an investment into your property. I invested, I didn't really invest. I had to buy, when we added that, expanded that this last time, and we added the Cobra, I wanted to have 3 flashes on the Cobra, and we also added an Ecotext, and that takes a ton of power. I had to install crazy power. I had to install 2 brand new 200 amp services on that end of the building. And if the lease is up, if I leave, what the fuck, like, do I pull all that stuff out? I mean, that was like $20,000 or something, and so it's just gone.
We just updated our power to 400 amps, and it was $13,000 through a friend who gave me a deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
we just did ours, and I got it done last week. and my bill was $3,300.
I hate you.
Did
Well, the funny thing was, and that was even pricier than it would have been because I hired my electrician to come out and he put in the new mast and all that stuff. And then Nice Egg just gave us the meter. And
Now,
the funny thing was, is that,
are you missing a zero? Like, is it 33,000?
No, hold on. I will show you the bill. I have it on my desk because
we're gonna need to see the bill.
All right,
because $3,300 $3,300. It doesn't even buy the fucking panels. Is it three phase?
Seriously.
Yeah, 3 phase.
But one thing that I think that people don't realize, I was in such a hurry to buy buildings. And I'm not going to say that I wish I would have rented longer. I don't think I would change anything, but I mean, you can only write off so much of that a year for 15 years, at least in Pennsylvania.
Write off so much of what? Your
just
an improvement?
Like,
okay, so what?
You can write off the improvements, but
36,000. Hold on.
He just faked that so fast.
3,662.
Yeah,
and that's for
I don't know
parts.
What you got done, but it seems
so
crazy.
Well, hold on. Let me say why. We have
something's wrong with your mic, I think.
Oh, it's unplugged. It's not near my face.
There you go.
We have 3 phase and we had a 200 amp panel and then we needed to upgrade to a 400 amp service and we have one pole directly out front. Thanks, Zach.
What was that? That was good.
Zach talks in a really good Elmo voice, so he just Elmo'd under my door. So that was wonderful. We had a pole directly out front, and then the next pole down had like 2 big transformers on it. But we were having issues where when we would turn the flashes on or we did something that drew a lot of power in the building, the whole building would like the lights would dim. So we told NICEAG about that. And then we told them that we wanted up to a 400 amp service and they covered the cost of the whole thing. So they put new transformers in, ran new wire to the building, gave us a 400 amp meter. That was all on them. Like it was fully covered by them. So the only thing I had to pay was my electrician to come in and run like the new mast and wire in the new box and do the whole thing. So this bill is just my electrician coming in and like doing
that's awesome.
That work. Cause like I said, NICEAG knew like, let's just give him all the stuff because like he's obviously upgrading and he's
okay. So you're saying that wasn't running the drops to your press and stuff like that. That was just,
well, I already had that. We upped it so that for the future we have plenty of electric to do whatever we want to do with.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry that I called your bluff. I believe you, big guy.
Okay. Thanks. I don't lie.
Yeah, we ended up adding a bunch. We have 5 flashes now. We have 5 LEDs, which I can't even begin to tell you how much that made a huge difference in our shop. So I feel like that's one thing that people probably don't think that technology matters in, but the flashes having what they have it's just insane to me. So we were over curing everything. I feel like before that.
Yeah.
Over flashing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you didn't have temp control. You mean you had no real like control over how much you were flashing.
And it's something as dumb as the LED having the sensor that you can read when it's actually flashing and being able to heat the pallets up and be able to see the temperature of the pallets.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes out like guesswork, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of things. There's no more scorching like tri-blends. There's no more over flashing. But the biggest thing is like with poly ink is that you're not like re-wetting the ink. So like if you get it to a certain point, it's supposed to like gel, but then if you overheat it, it actually wets it again. So that's why like people are like, why won't this poly ink ever like, I'm burning the shirt before I can get this to not be wet. It's because you're overkilling it.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's plastic. So if you heat up plastic too much, it's going to melt again.
Right.
Like that's how I view it. I don't know if that's the right way to think of it.
It's the dumbed down version, but that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Michael, you were saying something about, I think depreciation as far as investing in your buildings, what was that? We were
Yeah, when I
before I
moved here,
really
I put-
interrupted you about Dylan's bill or something like that.
I
You were
will
saying
never
something
forgive
about what were you saying?
Yeah, like so my dad's an accountant, like I said, and my uncle works for him and does my accounting too, like my books and stuff. Or he finalized the books. But anyway, we put like 80 grand in here to move in here on top of everything. And because I just never realized that I couldn't write off, I don't think I could write off all $80,000 because it has to depreciate over 15 years because those improvements were lumped in with the regular mortgage. So I bought a building, my last building, a couple of years ago, and outgrew it. And I think that it actually hurt me by not just getting a warehouse space and renting for just a little bit longer. And then when I got to a point where I was at the size that I want to be, then find a building big enough, if that makes sense. So for me, it almost, everything's cheap here. Like my warehouse was $150,000, but I almost feel the addition that I'm going to put on in a couple of years is going to be more than that building, where I should have probably just found a bigger building for $300,000 a year later than I did, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I think that some people just like have it, me included. I have like this fast, how do I say it? I obsess over certain things that I probably shouldn't obsess over. Like I was like, I want a warehouse, where like I should have thought about it a little bit differently and took my time, because I think growing quick has actually like hindered us sometimes, instead of me taking my time and getting further along in the same amount of time, if that makes sense.
Well, it makes total sense to me, because I am that guy where like, I'm like, all right, this is what I want to do. I want to go, I don't know, this is first thing I thought of. It might not be the perfect example, but like CTS or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I want to go get a CTS. But then I actually had to like get the money together, and I was like dragging my feet because I was thinking about it and overthinking and everything else. And the truth of it is if I just would have went out and like immediately like, oh, I'm going to get a loan, or I'm going to do this, I'm just going to pull the trigger and buy it right now. Like, it wouldn't have given me the time to think about like the logistics of like the room, or like where it goes, or if I need to do different screens or whatever. It's like, I feel like it's a blessing and a curse in certain things that I kind of like think things out maybe like a year ahead of time. And it takes me that long to like process and figure out what I want to do, because there's a lot of things I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Or, I try to fully think through it rather than just be like, oh, I'm going to do this and pull the trigger on it all the time.
I think that you like are going to gain more than you lose from that mentality.
Yeah.
So I think that for one, we're a very debt-driven society. So like anytime that you have a year to save up for something, that interest can be put, that you would normally be paying from a loan, that you can use that money to leverage to do way more stuff. Right. So like it might slow you down in one way, but I think that, like I said, it speeds you up way faster in the long run, So, and that's for us, like when I moved here, I did put in 80,000, but it was actually more than that. And I maxed out credit cards. I did whatever I had to do to get in here, knowing that tour season was going to hit. And then luckily we had a really good first quarter before COVID hit. But if I wouldn't have, I honestly don't even know if I would be sitting here, because I maxed out everything to get in here, knowing that we were going to crush when tours happened. And literally when COVID happened, I had well over 6 figures cancel in orders in like 3 days. I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown pretty much, but I knew I'd figure it out. But it definitely was very, very stressful for
those, for those who've never been through this, but sounds like Michael and I have. I maxed out some credit cards when I started this. I should say restarted this. And for those who don't know, that destroys your credit, because one of the most important, calculations into the algorithm of what is your credit score is your ratio. And so if you have, for example, 100,000 in available credit on your credit cards, but you've, like you said, maxed it out, and so you've spent, let's just say 99,000. Well, that ratio is horrible, and so
it's crazy.
It dings your credit hundreds of points. Like they figure like, oh wow, holy shit. Like Andy has very little, he's maxed out his cards and he has very little left. There's no available credit. And so it's just trashes your credit. And so all of a sudden you're like, wait, I want to get a loan and I want to pay off my credit cards because these credit cards, the interest is because when I did max out my cards, I had 0 interest for 12 months or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you want to go get a loan to pay off the credit cards because you don't want, high interest, then the bank says, fuck you, your credit score is terrible. I was like, what do you mean my credit score is terrible? I'm paying these credit cards on time. I've never missed a payment. I said, well, it's the ratio's out of whack. And so, maxing credit cards.
It's bad.
I don't regret it. It's bad. Look, this is how this is one of the ways I was able to start. And, but it's not the best way. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I would say this too, though, that there are 2 ways. There are different situations. There's a situation where, like you said, it's advantageous to pay cash for a piece of equipment because it's because of, I guess, maybe you're protected, like if COVID happened and all sorts of other things. But there's also a situation I think that somebody may be in that they have maybe a pending PO, for example, and they need a piece of equipment so that they can produce. Well, then I think it's okay to finance in that situation, because what if you're going to pass on making $50K or something because, and then but if you got that loan or whatever to get that piece of equipment, you were able to make that $50K, well, then it makes sense. I think there's certain situations where financing is okay.
Yeah, it's how you leverage and just having a game plan of how you're leveraging, I guess. Mm-hmm. I ended up reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My dad is poor dad. So he's like the best person in the world, but he likes to spend money for no reason. So I needed to understand like the assets versus liability mentality. And it completely changed like how I thought about finances. There was like good thing for one, like me maxing out credit cards. I only did it for 2 months. And by that 2 months later, I already had it completely paid off because I completely, when I started to max stuff out, I started to gauge financing like completely different. So I watched every YouTube video that I could find about it. I read books. It made me a better boss, I feel like, because I understand money better. And I actually teach my employees some of that too.
Isn't that important? That's so important to understand, because there's a lot of people out there screen printing t-shirts and it seems like they can never get ahead. And I know of friends and people that have talked to me about it. Isn't it important to understand just some of the basics of money management, and just get it? Because maybe you're a fantastic screen printer, like you kick ass, but for whatever reason you struggle with the finance side of it. It surprises me to hear that your father is, because he's an accountant. I'm sure he understands it.
It is like crazy common for them to just. They have like a different way of looking at money, I think, because they're dealing with it all the time. At least he does. He struggles with like some mental illness. So I handle his money now because it's very common in the Amish community, which is in Punxsutawney, that if someone's struggling financially, they have like their either community leader or whoever is the best with finances, like set them straight.
That's cool.
And it is cool. And I had the conversation with him. I'm like, what legacy are you going to leave, like even financially, for like your family or the people around you? And it started to click. But I'm glad that him and I are like close like that I could help him, But he's doing really well now. In the last year, he kind of really he started focusing on the stock market, which he should, because that's his world. And he crushes in the stock market now. So, and he actually started taking over. He started making my portfolio. I put money in, and we've seen it actually gave us a bond again after years. So, but yeah, it's a very common thing for accountants to be like that, from what I've seen, which is really funny.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with like dudes who own like a car fixing place, like an auto body shop, they end up their daily driver is like the biggest piece of shit beater.
Yep.
Because like when they go home, they don't want to work on their own car. They just want to fucking go home.
Yeah.
The same thing. He deals with people's money all day, and then when he leaves, he's like, "Fuck this," and he goes and spends it.
Yeah. He just gives it away to random people. He's a magnet for just very toxic people. It's pretty awesome. But if you guys met him, you would laugh because he's very contradicting. He's like this dorky little accountant that just loves women and like has like a really fast car, but shouldn't be driving it. Just like
he sounds like awesome. A wild man. He sounds like someone I want to hang out with.
Yeah, he's pretty funny, but yeah, he has 5 living rooms in his house. It's almost like he just does whatever he wants. He doesn't care about any normal. So
there's nothing wrong with that. So tell me about because you have a different business model than kind of both of me and Andy do with like the band and the tour stuff. Like how do you manage that, and how are you doing? Like, are you doing a lot of like terms, or are you doing fulfillment for them, or how's it working?
I like dabble in fulfillment. It's kind of like I'll do this for you because I really like you kind of thing, but we're not really set up for that. I wish we were. I mean, the guys in Relentless Merch, like they ran stores all last year, same as Shirt Kong, and they crushed with that from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. But I don't have like that thing that allows me to know what to do with that side of the business. If that makes sense. It just doesn't make sense to me. But for terms and stuff like that, I've gotten away from it a little bit, but with bands, like there's no way to get around it sometimes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's problematic. I mean, I have one band that I'm best friends with, and they've owed me a couple $1,000s for a couple years because they just have really shitty luck. And it unfortunately has made it so that they are taking a long time to pay me back, Right. So, which I'm sure I think that you said that you had the same situation. It was like, hey, my van broke, we'll get you the next time.
It's exactly what I was going to say. The problem is that they're relying, like you said, when you were doing it, it's like you're relying on the merch sales to take that money to be like, all right, we have money for gas and food. Mm-hmm. And then they don't ever think about like, oh yeah, well, fuck, like we flipped our van or the van broke down. And they're like, all right, well, the van bill's $1,000, but we only have $1,000. And then they spend that, and then they don't have money to pay you back at the end. Like you think about it as not a band person. You're like, all right, well, they have X amount of merch or CDs or whatever they're going to sell. And then at the end of that, they should have, profit and then whatever. And then they can pay that off and do other things. It's like, they don't think about all the other shit that happens on the road of like, oh, like his tube amp broke and we had to go to Guitar Center and get like new tubes, or, we needed this or needed that. It's like money goes away. I mean, I get it. It's part of it. It's fine. But like for me as the business owner on the other end of it, like I still need to get paid so that I can pay my employees and keep my lights
for
on. Sure.
And it's like, you're the first person to not get paid.
Right. Exactly.
Probably. You know what I mean? So, I've known for a long time that most millionaires have 7 forms of income. And so when I was even doing my band and stuff, we would try so hard not to use our merch money or even our guarantee money for what most people use for that. Right. So what we would do as a collective whole we would go on tour and we would buy equipment on Craigslist or whatever. And at the end of the tour, we would sell that and use that. After a while, we started using that to actually run our band. So it allowed us to build up the emergency fund pretty much that allowed us to keep progressing without it like being a negative thing for anybody else. Like, I don't ever want to be like somebody that says like, I can't pay a bill. Like, what can we do to some small business or whatever, Right. So, but I always try to leverage other things that like I do it now. Like I bought a $1,500 drum set for $500 2 weeks ago. It still had the tags on it. And I'll sell it for $1,000 or $1,200.
Well, now I know not to buy that fucking drum set from you.
Yeah. Or you could just say,
now that
hey,
I
I
knew
know
you
gotta,
paid for it.
yeah. Well, it doesn't, yeah. I feel like I have a knack of like doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't try to touch that money because I figure that I'm very frugal. So I figured if I sell a couple of those a month, I can live off of that.
Yeah,
you know?
no, for sure.
So
yeah, I'm slowly starting to try to get into other things. Like I've got my hands in a couple things now, like real estate wise. Like I kind of want to get more into real estate and maybe into a couple other things. I mean, me and Andy are going to start a root beer company.
nice. Should.
And Dylan has a 900 number, apparently.
Right. I have a 1-900. I got my OnlyFans if you guys want to sign up.
Hell yeah.
$20 a month.
I think it's important to have, I mean, we have different departments for a reason. It's almost like doing the same thing on a different scale, you know?
Right.
I think that you're set up for it. Like if you teamed up with your dad and had rentals, if that would work out, like you could, I mean, I have friends that have 30 rentals and they don't really have to work anymore. Right. They just have people.
There's plus and minuses to it. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of set up nicely for it to where like I do have my dad and like I could easily be like, oh, I bought this house on foreclosure, for a good price. Yep. And then dad, go work here for like whatever, like 2 months, fix it up and let's rent it out. But then the thing is too, that sounds good, but then who do you get in there that's actually going to rent it? Like you're going to get fucking scumbags in there that are going to have pets and they're going to shit on the walls and have fucking seances and shit in there. Or
I mean, I've been very lucky for the, and sorry to interrupt you, but I've been very lucky because I have one renter who sold a business for like $3 million and he's 80 years old. He's not going to be there forever, but he literally is like, hey, if you get hard up for money for whatever reason, just let me know. I'll pay the rest of the year off, like for rent. And then my other renters typically are people that work for me that are younger that I try to, like I said, I try to help them,
the best tip that I can. The best tip I ever heard with the real estate stuff was to try to buy a shit house or buy a, something you can afford in a college town or near college, because if you fix it up, the best thing you could get is students in there to rent it because they're young. They're just there to sleep. They're at school most of the time. They're doing everything they want to do. But you can jack up the rent too, because they're paying for it with student debt or their parents are paying their rent. So it's more of like a guaranteed income because they need to live there while they're at school.
And they won't have any keggers or anything like that.
Well, whatever. I don't care about beer. You can always wash out beer. But like, the thing is then when they leave, you're going to have more students come in. Like you're always going to have like more and more students. Yeah. You need to deal with like the coming and going all the time, but like you can have premium rent with people aren't going to like annihilate it.
Like I have people here that are helping me with that stuff now. So, like Amanda, my secretary, I'm like, hey, I have a new renter. Can you figure out the lease? I'll sign what I need to sign.
Right.
And I kind of built it weirdly into my business too, but it alleviates like my stress, like financially. Yeah. I live in a $25,000 house. Like this is hilarious. I'm not going to live there forever, but I paid it off in like, I think 9 months. The roof leaks. I have a bucket that the water gets caught. Cause like I'm focused 9,000% on my business and
this, right.
projecting that,
Right. So, it's the same thing. Like I bought a really nice old Victorian and like we spent a ton of money and time into like fixing it up, getting it where I want to be. And now like, I think just like getting older and everything, like I'm like, man, I really envy these people that like have a tiny home where it's literally like a bedroom, a living room, a bathroom, and then it's just like super efficient. Cause like my mind as an owner always thinks in like efficiencies, not necessarily like luxuries. So it's like, I'm like, man, you know what? I would pay an electric and like I could just spray foam this tiny home and like it would be so efficient and heat and air conditioning. And I was like, I really only need a place to sleep and like watch TV and like take a piss. Like, man, I would love to have this like tiny trailer or tiny thing in the woods. And it's just like nobody's gonna bother me.
That's what we're looking at now. One of my neighbors at my dad's has a small ranch house, but it's on 20 acres.
Perfect.
And it touches. It is crazy. It could be really, really nice. And we're looking to get that, but it's, I don't want a big house. At some point I'm going to have kids and they're going to grow up and they're going to move away. And
then you're going to have a big empty house.
Yeah. And it definitely gets way bigger. Even my father's house, like I said, like he just keeps making living rooms because he doesn't have any use for, because he just lives by himself.
What's the thing in like my house? Like I have so many rooms, we just make shit up. It's like, oh, this is my drum room. I have a gun room. Like I just have rooms that I just have shit in, and I'm like, oh, this is my room. Like
you should make your gun room like a vault. So like the whole door.
Yeah, first I gotta come see your gun room. That's for sure.
It's just a wall of guns.
I mean, you can just walk in. And
it's a door. Like you open the door, and on the right is like a workbench where I have like my cleaning tools, and like I have racks of like shells that I've like because I was hoarding ammo for a while. And then like the other two walls are just like gun racks with like guns lined up on the walls.
And I have has a lock on it.
I have a lock on the outside of the like a deadbolt thing.
Cool. Can't wait to see it.
Cool.
One day when you invite me up there.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I was going to say was that while we're on the topic of finance and stuff like that, have any of you ever listened to Dave Ramsey?
Yes.
A long time ago.
I listened to it as somebody who is very not religious. So it's, but I learned like so much from him with that stuff, but there's some stuff that I don't agree with him with. So I think that sometimes you have to have depth to further yourself, but he's like completely 100% against debt.
You mean like if you have to have a car to get to work, it's okay to have some debt on that car. Is that what you mean?
Just, or even like in a business sense, because I don't think that some of it like really translates into business. I mean, think of like where we would be if we, like some people can't just buy it automatic. Like they need to take a loan out. And think of like the difference between having an auto and where you were even with 2 or 3 manuals. It just opens up a whole entire world. I know you guys don't do much contract work, but you can't do contract work really, I don't think, on a manual. Like it just doesn't really make sense.
No, because you're making money the faster you get that job done. Because you're making pennies compared to what you make direct to customer.
Yeah. And how insane was it the first 6 color that you ran on an auto and compared to like running a 6 color on a manual? Right. My mind was like blown.
You know what my favorite is when we get someone local that's a print shop or whatever, and they have like a 1,500 piece order or something, and they're like, oh, we have it on a manual. We don't want to do this. We want to sub it out to you. And they come to your shop and they drop it off in the morning. And then we call them back by like 11 a.m. and we're like, your order's done. And they're like, what are you fucking talking about? And we're like, yeah, we did it in like an hour. And they're like, oh my God. And then they give up.
I always see people talking on the forums like, when is the time to get an auto? And I wish that I would have been able to do it a little bit quicker because I turned down a lot of work because I didn't have one, but I didn't realize the actual difference between the two,
Right.
It's such especially if like now we can put 3 flashes on our Cobra and it's a 14 color. And it's like, I'm sure you guys are in the same spot. It makes the possibilities way more.
I feel like it's a hard, not easy answer, complicated conversation because like we both have different opinions on like, okay, do you pay cash for it or do you finance it or do you hurry up and just rush into it or do you have a customer that's coming that you hope is going to pay for it? Like there's a lot of variables there. I feel like you should just do the research and find out what works best for you is really the best answer for that. And the other part of it is it's kind of like, I don't know, like you said, like having the 14 color Cobra, like that was something I didn't think of when I first got an auto. I wasn't like, I was just like, oh, I want a Sportsman. And I was like, oh yeah, we only do 6 color prints. Like I want an 8 color Sportsman. But the thing you don't think of is like, you get these 6 color prints that you realistically should probably flash between almost every color. Like, cool. Yes. Well, now that's fucking like 5 spins, 6 spins or whatever. Like it takes forever. It's like if you can fit a 14 color press or a 12 color press or whatever in your space, you should probably try to get that 12 color or 14 color because of the amount of spins. Like you can do almost every job on that 14 color in one spin.
Yeah. And so that's what we were doing. We had an 8 color saber, which we still have. And we were running so many 8 color jobs. It was killing us. Like I was like, I can't make money at it, but I don't want to turn it down because I'm losing other work from it.
Well, you got to think if you go from 1 spin to 2 spins, it goes from taking this amount of time to doubling it.
Yeah.
And if you're like, oh, it's 3 spins, well, it takes you three times the amount of time to do that job. And it's like,
and another thing too with the auto stuff is that people don't realize that you want a hot head. You want like I said, like a smash screen or whatever people are calling it, and then cool down stations, and there's so much to it. But I think
flash
another
and
thing
cooldown alone is two spots. So if you have 3 flashes, that's 6 spots on your press.
Yep. So another thing that I want to say that was confusing to me that I'm glad that I went the route that I went is if someone's not handy with fixing stuff, buying a used automatic is going to be stressful sometimes. Like if it's like a used truck. So it's going to end up nickeling and dime you. Like,
for sure.
Phil from Pyre Press is one of my really good friends, and
I love Phil. Yeah,
he's great. Sometimes he's not. I'm just kidding. But he's going to listen to this and he's going to laugh. But he called me and he was like, "Should I buy this? Should I buy this used press? It's this price." And I'm like, "Yeah, that would probably be good for you to start out with. Get a year or two into it, get something different." And he got it. And I think he used it twice and it never worked. And it just took up space in his shop. And he took a huge, he definitely did not make money with it. I will say it like that. Right. And that's I think that's such a learning, I think for people to that are not at a spot where they have an auto, to really, really, really focus on.
I think there's some equipment you buy used and some you buy new. Everything, I'm a big advocate of new. I always have been. I like the idea of buying new, getting the support of a new piece of equipment, getting the warranty of a new piece of equipment. I don't want a press to be down or whatever it is. Whatever that piece of equipment is, I don't want it to be down. I don't want to be tinkering with it. I don't want to have to go get my tools. I want it to work. And I want to be able to maintain it and perform maintenance on it the way I think is appropriate so that it lasts. And so, yes, I pay more for my equipment than most people, but I also don't fuck around with it ever, you know, when it works. And I would say the other thing I wanted to say was that if you only have one press, 8 colors, probably the wrong press for you. But we, like you, we have our first press, which is an 8 color sporty. And we use it every day. I hear it right now because it sounds different than the rest. But I hear it right now because we run 1, 2, I guess in 3 color jobs on it. 4 and 5 go to the 10, and then 6, 7, 8, whatever go to the Cobra. And I would say, of course, the Cobra prints 1 color jobs sometimes also, just because we have a whole day of 1 color stuff or whatever. But I don't think you should have all 14 color presses. Because it seems like that'd be, unless you're
no, it's not necessary.
Unless you're all your printing are 14 color or not 14 color jobs, but high color work. You know what I mean? But
it's the capability. You have the capability to do more if you have to.
Yeah, I would guess
it's limiting spins too.
Having the monster press? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
But like you guys said, if you just have one press, go for as many colors as possible.
Well, it's like for us with the gauntlet and the sportsman, it's like Randy runs the gauntlet and he's getting to the point where most of the jobs that we're doing on that press are all 8, 10, 12 color, whatever prints. And he's like, so many times he comes in the office, he's like, what I would do to kill for a fucking 1 color vintage print. Because he never gets to do them because on that press, he's doing everything that's 5 to 14 color prints.
But he's also your main printer, right?
He's the seasoned one, right? And it's just on the sportsman, he's doing 1 to 5 color prints all day long. But like I said, Randy's doing all the 5 to 14 color prints.
We schedule production deliberately sometimes for the very reason, like you just said. So if somebody's running just a complicated ass job for a couple of days or something, then they don't want to go into do another complicated ass job. So I think it's nice to break it up or whatever, even if it's just a day.
I throw them a bone.
Yeah, throw them a bone at the end of the day to just give them one color, because it always seems like that last job of the day gets fucked up, because you're tired, you've already printed all these other things.
Especially on a Friday,
On a Friday, that last job.
I 1000% look at the schedule that way, where I know the last job of the day cannot be like a 9 color, because it's going to get, you'll see it too on the schedule. You'll have the whole week planned out and stuff burned or whatever. You'll see him go through the schedule and it'll be like this job, this job, this job, this job. And then the last job's like an 8 color. And then you'll see that the very first job on the next day got done. Because he's just like, fuck that. I'm going to do the 9 color in the morning and I'm going to do this 2 color now.
Did you get your reclaim yet?
September. I'm dealing with the COVID supply chains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you waiting to announce what you got?
No, I don't really care. I mean, I was waiting for a little while because it was kind of like under wraps with the fact of like it being a new company. But yeah, I ended up going with the Blue Water Labs one, which is a new company, but it's focused around the chemical rather than the. I feel like cool. A lot of companies are focused on like how many can I crank out an hour, which it does a good amount an hour. I'm just saying that it's very focused on like alleviating problems with a lot of people have, like with pH levels and all this other stuff. So I'm excited to get it. It's going to be a thing where the reason why I got it is because of the people behind it. And the same thing, like you said, like if you have issues with like screens or whatever, you call Frank. It's like my thing with this is like, if I have an issue, I call the one guy and that's what we do. So, I'm excited.
That's like one thing that we want to do is get reclaimed, but it's a space is an issue because obviously I want the one that ShirtCon has, but it would take up a huge space,
Right. And I always credit Andy to that. It's like he has his because he has the space and whatever. It really is an amazing piece of equipment. Like it
looks great.
It does amazing stuff, but it's also like the Ferrari. And I've said this a bunch of times, but it's like, we all want the Ferrari, but like in reality, are we a shop that needs to do 100 screens an hour? Or are we a shop that needs to do 25 screens an hour?
You're basically saying ShirtCon's better, and
that's what I heard.
Okay.
Andy likes to buy the fancy cars.
But it, for one, it doesn't do 100 an hour.
That's proving a point.
I think it would just be cool not to like breathe in those chemicals and not have my people breathe in those chemicals.
When we got it, I knew that it was capable of cleaning more screens than we needed to every day. But I purchased it because of my relationship with M&R. I purchased it because of the proximity. I'm just like a few hours from M&R. Purchased it because of the screens, how they exit the machine. They're absolutely perfect. And why else did I purchase it? Oh, I also purchased it because I did want to go fast, but I didn't want to. It wasn't that I was had time to do it all day, but when I was doing it, we wanted to go fast. You know what I mean? So we don't need to clean 500 screens in a day, but we want to clean them really fast, as fast as we can. I think though that I heard anyway that M&R is coming out with a smaller version of it, and I want to say it's in 2022. So I don't know when you're looking to add this reclaim, but if you have a little bit of time, they're coming out with a smaller version.
I'm waiting. I figured that the technology would kind of catch up a little bit because there's so many people that want them now.
Right.
So it put more focus on them actually making stuff for the mid-size shop. So that's what I was kind of waiting for that, but it's an overlooked part of your shop. I think that people it's one of the last things people are going to do, because you think to yourself, well, I want an auto before I ever get that. And I want a CTS, and those are probably true things, but when it's just exactly like everything else. When you finally get it, you're like, I cannot believe I waited so long to get it. It's a game changer for sure.
You just need to get something that really works for your shop. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I said, I really wanted the Ecotex, but it would never work here. Like it was too big. It would just take up way too much space. I physically can't fit it in here.
My thing too is like, I kind of had to change my mentality after I saw Gorilla Joe's like Lotus Holland. And it made me, something that I didn't like really think about was the fact that I was like, I want something that goes in and comes out completely clean all the time, like every single time. If it doesn't do that, it's failing. But then I realized that when I saw it in person, there's no sensor that's telling it that it still has a spot of emulsion or a spot of ink. So you can't really put the machine at fault for that. There's different with like the different like variances with that kind of stuff. You know,
I think the biggest thing with them is that you need to kind of do your prep right. Like what Andy was dealing with like, he has to super have dialed in like making sure his emulsion is like fully like it can't be underexposed, because then when it goes in the tank, it's going to spray off and it's going to be stringy or gooey. And then you're dealing with like chemicals in the tanks being like making sure they're at the right ratios and they're not cross contaminating each other. And when you put your screen in the machine, don't be an asshole and leave a ton of ink on the screen. I don't know if you guys hear the train going by, but it's going by.
I thought
like
there was somebody flushed. I thought somebody flushed the toilet.
No, it's a train. And there's just variables. It's like if you do the prep work and you make sure they're going through the way they should go, you're obviously going to have less issues. But the nice thing, like with Andy's, is he has the booth at the end too. So if something comes out where it has like a little bit of something that just kind of got blowback in the screen, not necessarily shit still in the screen, he can just pressure wash it off at the end.
So somebody who's used Auto Reclaim for over a year now and has sent tens of thousands of screens through, I would say that with the Ecotext, I can speak to the Ecotext. No other Auto Reclaim have I ever used, right? But I've used this for a long time. It's very battle tested. There's never any ink. Okay, ink is never an issue.
Awesome.
Ink comes out. There's never ink ever on the screen, ever. I'm going to stress that. Oh, one of the reasons is probably because fucking easy way. It's the easiest way. There's never ink.
What about emulsion?
There is sometimes emulsion. And the reason, there can be a couple things that cause that. The hardest thing to figure out is chamber 2, which is like the dip tank. And with the Ecotext, there's recipes. And so you can adjust times for, let's say you're sending an 86 mesh through with a certain amount of emulsion on it versus a 230 mesh. Well, that's different. And so it's going to need, just like you would leave it in the dip tank longer, you want to leave it in the chamber longer. And so, or if you have a thicker spot, let's just say on your screen where the emulsion is thicker.
Like where it scrapes or on the edges.
Where it scrapes or something like that, exactly. And so on an autocoder, at the top, you can either card it or sometimes you don't and you're in a hurry. And so there maybe is a bead that's thicker. Well, every once in a while that there's something left behind. And so it has a finishing station. And I would say never more than 30 seconds do you spend with the power washer on just the emulsion. But that's only on probably 2 out of 10 screens or something like that. I mean, if you have it dialed in right, there's never a problem. And the last thing would be is that if, just like the dip tank, when you pull screens out of your dip tank, after the 100th one or whatever, your super or whatever you've got in your dip tank, your reclaim isn't as strong, right? It's just, you need to add chemical or whatever you got to do. Same thing goes with the auto reclaim. All of a sudden your chemical isn't as strong as you got to dose it. And you're like, oh shit. And that's what the finishing station is for. Like, we never send a screen back through, maybe there's been one time or something. I can't remember, you would have to ask the guys, but I mean, it's just not a thing. You send 100 screens through. If there's a little bit of emulsion left over, you finish it right in the finishing station, 30 seconds or less. And so the Ecotext fucking works. There's no doubt about it.
And how awesome, like regardless of like the chemicals that you use, I feel like it's not good to breathe in. Like, so how awesome is it for the people that work at your shop to not have to deal with that anymore?
Incredibly nice. Right. I mean, now anybody will do that job. In fact, they volunteer for it or even fight over it, because you get to go over there, put in your iPods and chill for 3 or 4 hours and send screens through. It's awesome. Like it's a nice job. It's not the shit job in the shop. It's actually a pretty cool job. And so
it's literally the worst job in the shop, like for our shop.
Yeah.
It's
which sucks too, because like I said, I just had this conversation with our new hires. It's like, it does suck, but it's a very important job, because if the dude doesn't clean screens well, then there's going to be shit left in the screen. Or if it's not degreased, you're going to coat it and then you're going to have fish eyes everywhere. Or
someone not paying attention to frames, like where you have ink all over the frames or whatever.
It's like, getting the auto reclaim is kind of just alleviating a lot of those issues. And, it's not that you're eliminating a person. It's just making it more dummy proof to where you're having less human error. So I don't know. We've talked about auto reclaim on here like a million times. So
I know you have, and I feel like
it's important.
It's one of those things that so many people are at a stage where they need it, but they don't know what to do and all that,
Again, this is exactly what we were just talking about like 20 minutes ago, where I know what I want to do, and it takes me like a year to do the research, plan out what I want to do. I'm not like, I need an auto reclaim, and I immediately call M&R and I'm like, hey, give me an Ecotex. I'm like, I'm going to talk to every human I know that has different units, and I'm going to say, tell me plus and minus for each one of these. And then I'm going to go see some, and then I'm going to talk to other people. And then, like I said, long story short, with this whole process, I came across something that I really wanted to do and try out or whatever. And I would have never had that opportunity if I would have done it immediately.
So Michael, you're a numbers guy, and we'll do the numbers real quick on this. So $15 an hour.
Yep.
Times 40 hours. $600 a week.
Yep.
Times 52 weeks. 31.2, right?
Yep.
So $31,200. That doesn't include workman's compensation. That doesn't include unemployment insurance. That doesn't include health, paid holidays, PTO. $31,200. And if your reclaim costs $100,000, that's times 3. So 3 years, it's 93. 3 years of paying somebody to all day, which is what we did all day long, would wash out screens, and they still couldn't keep up. They still couldn't keep up. Like they weren't even fast enough, and they were doing it all day, and it was brutal. But instead, so we were going to hire another person, right? We were going to hire another person to clean screens all day. But instead, we bought a machine, and we didn't have to hire that person to do some miserable job. Instead, we hired a person to do a good job here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was a no-brainer for me, and that's why I did it. And so if you do the math on it, it makes sense. If it just by numbers, it makes sense. Not including the benefit of, like you said, quality of life of the people that are working around it. So
does the same person like coat and set screens too?
Sometimes we all kind of, so there's more than one person that cleans screens. One of the people there is also the founder and CEO who runs the Ecotext. And so that's me. One of the people that runs it is our production manager. And he does coat screens, image screens, develop screens, tape screens. That's Kyle. Yesterday, Adam ran screens through. He's a press assistant, press operator, actually. And he ran screens through because, I don't know, he had time for some reason. He wanted to do it too. And he came 2 screens shy of our record unknowingly, because he was just super proud of like how many screens he did. And he was like, look how many I did. And then Kyle showed him the record, and he only missed it by 2. And I was like, dude,
I like that you guys make it like a race. Like
there's a high score.
You know your numbers with that. I like that kind of stuff.
In our screen room too, there's a high score for imaged screens. You know what I mean? Just to keep track of that. Like how many have we actually waxed before? You know, how many screens have we actually done before? And so I think it's kind of interesting to see.
Off topic,
anyway,
how do you like wax?
I love it. I mean, we found what we needed, and we're good. I don't see a reason to ever change from this. This is really great.
Yeah, I think all of them worked really well, but just when I started diving deep into like the pros and cons of both, that's what made me decide wax. You know, it just seemed like I like things to be as dummy proof as possible, and and I don't think that I would have gotten one of the other ones with like where it exposes after it's done printing. It would have freaked me out too much for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I'm just always afraid of like I don't know how, and you guys know this better, but what freaks me out is like the dot game, like getting bigger because of the water-based stuff like spreading, you know what I mean? And that was like my breaking point with it, where
we figured out a way to control that, but we had to sacrifice certain things because of it. It still works really well. Talking about it like an inkjet, CTS, they still work. We made a lot of screens with it, and we had a lot of success with it, but the wax is where we want to be right now. That's for sure.
Good.
So Dylan, I have a listener question.
Yep.
And I thought that we should keep the streak alive and go to Jonathan. I texted him last night and I said, dude, the past 3 questions in a row have been from you. And if you have another one, that'd be really dope. And he said, yeah, I've got one. And so here it is. Jonathan from Success. Regarding new hires, are there certain things that need to be said to new hires from the get-go to cut off any bad habits?
I have a bad habit of telling people it's okay when they're not doing things to where I think that they should be. So with new hires, like now I'm trying to be like to the point of like what I expect of them. Even if I tell them like, hey, you're not doing this to like the level that you will be in 3 months, but giving them a gauge so that they know that they're on track or not. But I have a terrible tendency of being like, hey, you can do this if you want to, which I'm not really saying that. Actually, I'm saying, I want you to do this right now, and this is what I expect of you. So that's, I don't know. Hopefully that answers it, but
I feel like the same. Like I probably give them more leeway than we should. We should set expectations first thing. I feel like it's like meeting someone new. Like you don't want to like immediately be like, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong. You see them doing something that you taught them and it's not exactly what you wanted, but you're kind of like, you give them some leeway. But I like what you said is like giving them expectations of like, you're doing it this way, but like, I'd like to see in like 3 weeks, like you to be here or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't like knock them down a peg every chance you get. That's pretty much, I think that's it really. It's just kind of like setting expectations.
Do you guys ever hire somebody for something and then you move them to a different spot because you realize that they're better suited for that?
Definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
I did that yesterday, actually.
I mean, I have a conversation with them first, because I want to make sure that they want to take on either a different role or additional responsibilities. And a lot of times that comes with compensation adjustment up, and so they're excited about it. I mean, I think it's really good to, whenever we have somebody come in and they start at an entry level spot, almost always my hope is that they're going to move up in the company, because they start, they learn the ropes, they start to learn screen printing. Usually people that are starting here have never screen printed before. And so all of a sudden they know, shirt styles. So for example, like let's say they're at the end of the dryer, they learn shirt styles, they learn all the numbers. You go home and you memorize, exactly what a 5,000 versus an 8,000 versus a 2,000, all these numbers. And so you spent time in that dryer. Next thing you know, the shipping and receiving manager leaves and there's something opens up so I offer it to them because they already know all this stuff. They've already are familiar. In fact, they usually, when there's downtime, they've gone over and cross-trained in and sort of helped check in a job. And so they're already familiar with it, and so it's really natural. And so I always hope that when somebody starts here, that they do kind of move up the ladder. However, I would say that maybe that's not true with like a designer. They sort of just start as a designer and maybe they're always a designer. Maybe they become more, they take on responsibility in that room. For example, maybe they're senior designer and they are, and it's maybe their responsibilities are to always know like what cutting edge things they need. Should we get Procreate? Is that something new and we should get it, or what? Those kind of things. And so they take on a leadership role within that department. That's always, I guess, true, but they usually don't move departments from designer or something like that. But you know what I mean? So I guess that happened to you recently.
Yeah, it happened to me actually yesterday. It became apparent that I hired somebody to answer emails and do that, but he even said yesterday that his communication skills were not as good as what he thought when he got into it. So he would word things a certain way that would confuse people about when their stuff was coming in, or just simple stuff like that. But yesterday I was like, hey, I don't need you to do that right now because we're caught up on emails. Why don't you go do this? And he excelled at it to the rate where at the end of the day, he was like, I had the most fun today than I have working anywhere. And I was like, that's somewhere where we need somebody anyway. I was like, why don't we just use you here and start teaching you how to print and doing all this? And he was super excited about it. He actually went out to a fire yesterday with us, after work with my fiance and I, and I made it a point to take him, because in situations like that, the worst thing that I think can happen is we move somebody because something wasn't suited for them. And then there gets to be weird tension, or he thinks, I don't want it to be soul crushing for anyone, if that makes sense.
Oh, I see. So in the instance where you move them and it almost feels like you've demoted them potentially.
But it wasn't that way at all. And because it helped, we had our best day yesterday, production wise. And he was a big part of that because he was the variable that was different, So, but yeah, we just went out and my stepdad works here. So we all just sat and talked around a fire, and he was really happy with being able to actually move departments, even though it was 105 degrees in the shop, instead of sitting in air conditioning. So it's always hard doing that because you don't know how people are going to take it.
How they're going to take it. Right.
Yeah. Yep. But I'm glad that him and I are friends enough that we both were saying the same thing to each other, which was great,
Right.
So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have questions for us or shop hacks?
I have some shop hacks that I wrote down. So one of the M&R techs told me that you can use the scrub pads that you use during reclaim. Mm-hmm. And when you're applying adhesive on the pallets, you can actually use that with a handle, and it gives it almost a texture. And we realized that the adhesive actually lasts longer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you just putting it on the pallet and then scrubbing it around with the scrub pad?
Yeah. And what we do is we have a little Tupperware container that we have just a little bit of water in it. So when we're not using it, we just put it in there.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And it's one of those, why didn't we think of this? But that's, how it is, Mm-hmm. Do you guys have squeegee sharpeners?
Mm-mm.
No, I know somebody that does. And that is John at Logo Daddy. I took some of our squeegees down there one time and just to try it,
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. I mean, it did for sure. But because I was considering buying one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Dylan, have you ever tried it?
No, I just basically bite the bullet and buy more squeegee blade. I just have on the schedule, whites I'm going to do at this amount of time. And then colored squeegees I'm going to do at this set amount of time. And then I just replace all the blades.
So what I realized with ours is that the squeegee blades weren't always cut 100% true. So even with new blades, I don't know if you can see this. I have a mini, I cut this off or whatever, but so there would be a dip either in the center or the ends, even with new blades. But I want it to be true with the back. Mm-hmm. So even new blades and everything we sharpen. And since we started doing that, I think we released almost 30% pressure. So it made
you have a sharpener, you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
What brand is it?
It's called let me think. I'll have to send you a picture, but it's one of the diamond ones. It's Max something.
Yeah.
I ended up getting it off I ended up getting it off of our suppliers, and they were like trying to talk me out of it. And it just always like, I always thought of it like that and thought that it would make a big difference. And they ended up selling me like a $5,000 one for $1,000 or whatever. And I don't know why they weren't actually doing that as a service for people, because I think it makes a huge difference. But I feel like some people just don't see it that way, you know?
Oh, it's sharp. I mean, like a sharp squeegee definitely makes a huge difference. How often are you sharpening yours?
I try to sharpen every month or every 2 months, but it's weird because we never noticed because we didn't know. But now that we actually use it, like the guys will be like, hey, I think that it's time to start sharpening our squeegees again.
Right.
Because they notice so much of a difference. But I even do it for like our manual. I do it for all squeegees. So, but it's cool. The one that I have, like some of them you have to like hand move the what is it, the blade or however you want to say it, back and forth, the cutting wheel. Paper. Yeah. So this one is actually like, it goes back and forth itself. So you start it and you kind of just let it do its thing. So it doesn't really take up that much time for a person, you know? So, another thing is I put a work light over my dual coater, my Saudi dual coater, and that made the biggest difference ever because we couldn't really see in that area. And it's just one of those things that
just like a
$20 thing. What'd you say?
A safe light?
Yeah, we just took just a regular work light and then put like the yellow.
What was that doing for you other than just more light? Was it letting you see imperfections in screens or something? Yeah,
you could see behind it too. So it like illuminated the screens and it just made a big difference. I wish this is hopefully Mark from Doutfit hears this, but I wish that they would backlight their units too. So I don't know if you've ever thought of that, Andy, but it would be nice just to see. What do you say?
I have not. I've never, like an inspection light, a safe light.
Yeah, it would just like if anything ever happens where you need to stop the print or whatever, at least you could see it faster. You know,
right. That'd be nice.
What do you think? So I know that this has been mentioned before from King Screen, but using a drill press with a T handle upside down to stir your inks has made such a huge difference with us too. We do it to everything. We also have a roundabout too, which we use for whites, but it's made a big difference and it's easy to clean up. And I don't know how you guys like do where you put your orders when they're like ready for production, but we ended up, do you guys use Printavo or do you use something
I'm
different?
about to.
So in our nickname part in Printavo, we put the date that we want to print on. And then we also schedule where the jobs go on the racks that we have set out for production, like A to E. And then we do the same thing with the screens when they're getting set. And we write like the invoice number and then where they go, A to E. And it has cut hours out of our week from finding screens and finding the boxes and everything. And we're not even that big, you know? So that's like one of our biggest things that we did that I tried so hard not to like care about it. But once we did it, I was like, why didn't we do this 2 years ago? It's such a simple fix.
Right.
So,
yeah, I love organizational things like that, you know, that save time just because who wants to go search for screens or a box, you know, that's for sure. So I actually have a person that is transitioning from quality control to like an expediter, which their role would be to have this iPad and, you know, have our production schedule pulled up and kind of know what's coming next and get that job ready, whatever's on deck. You know what I mean? They're getting ready. Mm-hmm. They're carting shirts. They make sure that the screens are the right screens that we have, the inks, all this kind of stuff. So that they're, like you said earlier, you know, your teardown setup is where we save the most time. And this expediter, that's their role. They're devoted to it. They don't have any distractions. This is like a dedicated person. Do you know what I mean? And so having a system like that, we don't have organized. There aren't letters on a shelf or anything like that, but we really should. We really should do that. It would be way faster. I like it.
It's what I like about it is that it does not matter who works here. If they understand that concept, they can find it.
True.
And it just, I think that if you dumb something down that much, that it like sets you up to succeed. Cause what we were having happen was like, someone would do staging and like forget a box. And then we would be like, oh, there's a box of XLs. We have to reset this up. And that stuff drives me nuts. And I'm sure it drives you guys nuts if that would ever happen, Yeah. It's frustrating, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense for a shop hack. If that is what it is.
No, those were
smart.
Good. Yeah. You want to do quick takes, Andy?
I do want to. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I'll go first. What's one thing you need every morning?
Coffee. I don't really need it, but I like it. Are
you a breakfast guy or just a coffee guy?
No, I don't eat. I pretty much eat between like 1 and I try to quit eating at like 8. So I try not to eat breakfast.
So you're like, that's kind of like a intermittent fasting, right?
It is exactly that. Yes. I like it a lot. I feel like but I'm sure the coffee kind of breaks that, but, cause I get iced coffee, but I'm like one of those people that when I wake up, I'm 100% awake. It drives everybody in my life crazy. Cause I go 100 mile an hour from the time I get up, but you put coffee in me after that, it gets kind of wild. And I do it every day. So
kind of wild.
Yeah.
Next question is best recent read, listen, or watch.
Watch. What do you think?
Give me a show that you just watched or something like that.
Yeah, Dylan really wants a show because
I like shows and movies.
Sure. Don't tell him anything about reading. Yeah. He's a show guy. Dylan is a founder, one of the founding fathers of a book club. However, he doesn't read the book. He doesn't listen to the book either. If you can't listen to it, the book doesn't get read.
Doesn't exist.
Did you guys watch that show about Chernobyl or whatever that's called?
The one on HBO.
It is. I like fell into that super, super hard.
I haven't watched it yet, but I did want to watch it.
It's probably a good weekend to do so.
Okay. Well, then I'll do that.
It's not really that incredibly long, but for one, it's crazy because it actually happened, and you realize how much they were actually trying to hide it. But I was surprised how much I actually fell into it because I have a really hard time with that the older I get.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
What about you guys?
Dylan's watching ER or some shit right now. Right? Isn't that you?
I'm watching ER, yeah.
George Clooney,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My favorite thing that I've done recently between shows and books or whatever would definitely be the Vans book that we just did.
Right. It was a good one.
I really liked that story and it kind of pumped me up work-wise and inspiration-wise.
His real answer, though, before he says his real answer, if he would have read Action Bronson, Fuck It, I'll Start Tomorrow, he would have loved it. Absolutely loved it. I'm not trying to be like a dick right now. I'm being sincere. This is real talk, is that he would have fucking loved that book because that dude is, you would love to hang out with him. Guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So
someday.
One of his people.
Someday you're going to hang out with him or someday you're going to read it? Both. Okay. All right, cool.
What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
I think not to rush into things as much as I do. I'm one of those people that when I decide to do something, I'm 100,000% in, and I just just go all in. So, other than that, I mean, I wish that I would have meditated younger because I think it slows my ADD down a lot. Andy, do you meditate?
The answer to that is yes. However, not usually in the traditional sense.
Okay.
So, my wife, Joanne, she does meditate more, I guess, maybe appropriately, where she actually sets 20 minutes out, sits down and things like that. I think like I meditate when I'm driving sometimes. I don't know. I have this ability to like just check out and turn everything off, in the car, no radio. And
I do that too.
I don't know. I know my eyes aren't closed and otherwise I'd crash, but I'm able to just kind of drift off into thoughts. And so I don't know, maybe it's not the exact same thing, the real, meditation, but I like it.
Yeah. And I have one of the things that I do for enjoyment outside of work is my fiance and I have a Jeep that we drive, and we never put the top on. We never have the doors on. We just cruise, and you can't really hear music with it because it's loud. So it kind of resets both of us because we get to focus on just like what is around us. And I feel like we're so distracted anymore as people that that's like what we do to just reset so that we're like ready for the next day. It's awesome. That's why I love the summer so much, but yeah, I think people think that meditating is like a certain thing. And I don't realize that a lot of people do it without even realizing they do it.
Right.
So like you said,
Yeah. Next question. What would you be doing if you weren't printing shirts?
That's a tough one. I don't know if I would have stopped touring. I probably would have kept trying to I would probably joined like a band that was touring full time and just kind of focusing on that. But before I knew what I wanted to do, I wanted to go be a guidance counselor, which if I did that now, I think that people would just look at me like I was insane. Just like some chubby redneck with hand tattoos,
You mean like at high school, like a high school guidance counselor?
Yeah. I just like always, I feel like I like to sit down and talk with people and kind of digest what they're going through and trying to help them, guide them in some way, but I don't know how much I would have liked that after a while, but that was something that I was really interested in. So
my high school guidance counselor was a real fucking prick. So
I would have been too. I would have been so mean to everyone.
Mine pretty much just said I was a piece of shit and I was going to never amount to anything. And he was right, but No. You should go rubbing it in his face now. You should find him and say, hey, check this out. The best part is I dated a girl who lived across the street from him, and he had this like tiny tree in his front yard. Well, some asshole fucking like plowed through it with their car, like completely knocked it over. But the worst part of it is that he thought I did it. So I didn't do it and I wouldn't have done it, but I like that he thinks that I did it. So to me, that's a little.
You're just like, you wouldn't say no that you didn't do. You'd be like,
right. He's like, you fucking. And I was like, yeah, maybe I did. Maybe I didn't.
Did you guys have to write in your yearbook, like what you would be when you grew up, or like what you wanted to be?
You mean underneath your picture?
I guess so. Like when I was a senior, they were like, what do you want to be in 10 years or something like that? And
I like that though. That's cool.
I put that I want to tour full time and then make my own business. And I forgot that I did that and I reread it and I was like, how the hell did I call that one? Like,
right.
You're living your dream for sure. I think if you were to look at my high school yearbook, that we would all be canceled because it is awful. Like, when you pass it around and people sign it, it's like not good stuff. Like I need to dig that out. Like I'm going to do that tonight when I get home and dig out what people wrote. It's just unbelievable, the shit that was written in there. I don't know.
Yeah, things have changed a lot in the last even 2 years.
I'm pretty sure mine was like, it was some like quote from like a crime think book about like living off the grid or I don't know. I was very into dumpster diving and just like fuck everything at that point. So I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive it was some kind of quote from the Crime Thing series.
They had like right underneath of your picture and your name that they had where you just say like a little quote, and the bass player of my band just said cream cheese in his. Like he's a psycho, you know.
Why not? That's the best part.
I love cream cheese, so
he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Dylan. Oh yeah, your next question.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Oh my.
Cream cheese on toast.
I literally don't cook, and I eat like a little kid, so I would probably I'd probably say like pizza rolls in an air fryer or something crazy. But I literally have the palate, like the food palate of like a 6-year-old kid. Just like
that's cool. What would be your favorite? Would it be the pizza rolls?
I mean, I like
what's your favorite food then? Like what's your go-to? Oh hell yeah. Like if you were lost in the woods for a week and you finally got home and you had to eat something, what would it be?
Something with asparagus on the side. So
No
even
way.
if it was like, you
Not
don't like
true.
asparagus?
No, I do, but that was the last thing I thought you were going to say.
I have asparagus growing on the side of the building. I'll send you both pictures of it when we get off here. The lady that had the house, but I literally we pick our own asparagus. Like I'm letting them grow out right now so that they have seeds for next year. But I love
grilling asparagus.
Yeah. And I love steak, and I was vegetarian for 6 years and then vegan for a while. And I just recently relapsed, or whatever you want to call it.
You went hard in the other direction.
Yeah. I broke edge and broke veg, or whatever you want to say it. But yeah, I definitely like a good steak now, you know? Mm-hmm. So I like the vegan food still too. I just mixed it together, you know?
All right, Andy, finish her off.
Yeah, I have the last question, but before I ask that, I wanted to tell you, with asparagus, I love it, but it has to have like olive oil and garlic on it, because like just plain, it's sort of like Brussels sprouts.
No psychopath eats plain ass asparagus.
I think Michael might, honestly. I'm pretty sure the way he was talking.
I'm very bland. I like.
You got to at least do like salt and pepper and olive oil.
Yeah, I definitely do. We do that. Yeah.
Okay.
But
yeah, that's the bare minimum.
I have ate them plain and I didn't hate it. So,
no.
But I'm like the psycho that like.
That's why you're not a guidance counselor.
Yeah. If someone gave me just like plain white rice, I would just eat it and enjoy every bit of it. And I don't have to put anything on it, or, you know, I'm very bland, I guess, in that department.
Well, Dylan's kind of the same way with his condiments.
I'm bland, but I won't eat fucking white rice.
All right, I have the last question, and it's not evening. It's actually just lunchtime. And so, which, by the way, thank you very much for recording on a weekday, like in the middle of a work day. That's tough, and I appreciate that. And cool. But the question is normally what's for dinner, but I'm going to ask what's for lunch, and I'm going to tell you what I'm having for lunch first. I'm holding it up. And it is mac and cheese. And because why? Because it's probably my favorite meal. Macaroni and cheese.
I've never ate mac and cheese before.
This can't be true.
It freaks me out. I have weird texture stuff in it.
You've never had mac and cheese before?
I'm a freak. There is so much stuff that I haven't ate food wise that would.
You said you had the diet of a child, and I would say mac and cheese is probably number one on that list.
It's right there with chicken nuggets and peanut butter and jelly.
Right?
I've never eaten peanut butter before either.
Oh my God.
Are you allergic to that or something?
You're a fucking robot.
Somebody that my mom knew, their kid choked and almost died from eating peanut butter. And as a kid, she was like, "You're not allowed to eat peanut butter. You're allergic to it." So I have no idea if I actually am or not, but I'm like freaked out by it still. It's like instilled in me, which is funny. But For lunch, I have leftover, hilariously enough, like steak, mashed potatoes, and corn at home. So after I get off here, I'm going to go heat it up and roll that way. So
Sounds like a good lunch.
yeah. I typically don't even really eat lunch that much either. I'm like, I just.
Well, it's around almost around your 2 o'clock mark. So.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that's what I'm planning on eating. So
nice.
What are you having for lunch?
Probably pizza, leftover. Pretty basic, but I got to get back to work, so I need something quick.
I wish you would have said macaroni and cheese with peanut butter on it.
Extra peanut butter.
Yeah.
I just take the sauce packet, not the powder, like the deluxe mac and cheese, and I just slurp down the cheese without anything, and then I mix peanut butter in with the noodles. We have
one guy that works here that he is super, super afraid of ketchup. And he's like one of my best friends. And it takes everything I have not to just fill his shoes up with ketchup and just like rush him out of the house to see if he puts his feet in it. But I'm afraid that he would actually hurt me like if I did that, because he's kind of like that.
You guys got some weird things. He's afraid of ketchup. You've never had mac and cheese or peanut butter.
Yeah, I'm going to make a GoFundMe that if I raise $500, I'll try mac and cheese. That's how that would be on the low side of me, like doing it. It'd take quite a bit of money.
And you find out that you love it, and it was
you were missing it till the end of time.
That's right.
I was 16 before I tried watermelon. Like, I'm telling you, I'm an idiot with that stuff. I still, but it's not like it's irrational for sure. But if I try something new, even if I'm like completely calm, I'll be drenched in sweat. I'll be like, I feel like I like need to run away pretty much, like fight or flight kind of thing.
Remember how earlier you said that you would meet up with me at Pyre and we would go to dinner? I can't wait for that experience.
Yeah, you're going to just make fun of me so bad. We went to a barbecue place and I literally ordered French fries and chicken strips, and everybody yelled at me so bad about it. Like, even people walking past me were like, "What is your problem?" Like, and I didn't even know. It was awesome.
All right, man. Well, have a good one. I'm gonna get back to the daily, but this was fun. I appreciate
it. Yeah, dude. It was really nice talking. So
this was fun. Yeah, thanks for talking to us. Great chat, man.
Hey.
Yep. See you guys.
See you later, dude.